this up. All right. And we're back.
Welcome back.
All right.
I'm showing my age.
Welcome back. We're still raising some money for charity. For Doctors Without Borders. We're on the last little leg here. So far, we've raised $4,041. Thanks to Little Drifter Boy for gifting that $20 earlier, and an Immortal Kid for gifting that $20 as well. So if you want to help us out, trying to get to our 4,500 final goal, please do drop some drop a little bit of money. We're about like what 300 something out. So
if I'm looking at the counter, it's 4,041 at the moment, and if that's right, that's really bad because that means in the last hour and a half we've added $41.
Yes.
Man, I'm a bad guest.
So come on, Aussies. If any Aussies are watching, you've got to bail us out here because the Aussies are on, and we're letting the team down.
Come on, guys. Use your lockdown checks.
Do it.
That's right.
And it's for a good cause. It's for Doctors Without Borders. So Medicons, I can't say because I can't speak French very well.
Médecins Sans Frontières.
There we go.
And that's probably a really bad French accent, but hey, shoot me.
All right. Kuno asks, the Astropub, the beards are strong with this panel. Yes, the beards are strong with this panel. We made that joke earlier. Swervin asks, with the introduction of ship skins, what is the status of the Electro Hull skin and what will it do? It's a good question.
I think the idea probably still remains the idea that you can have two skins equipped and switch between them on the fly. And I don't think that will change at all. But I think that's the last official I heard on it, was the idea that you'd have now 2 slots for the skin and like some button on your dashboard to change it. Which would be pretty cool.
I'm not familiar with what this is.
It was an old thing you could buy for your Auroras, I think.
It was for any ship.
No, it was with the. I think it was in the larger packs. It was just an electro skin. Certainly came with the completionist pack. It was certainly in the old Wing Commander pack. I'm not sure if it was in any of the smaller ones. And I believe it was a kind of like the original custom constellation skin, which was in those packs. So I think. I think it may have been more a constellation skin.
I can't remember where I'm getting that idea from, like the idea that it's going to be these 2 slots and you can switch between them. But I'm fairly confident, and that would also make sense, right? Because otherwise you've got to park a ship to change the skin.
I think that comes back from about 2014 when they were talking about overuse of the skin. What is the skin? And it was kind of the idea that it would make it harder to pick you up. So whether it's scrambled sensors or but it certainly made it look different. So something pirates would use, they'd come in flying, like raising the false colors.
Yeah.
That was that type of idea, at least from my memory.
The selling of skins obviously has been a bit kind of anathema towards the idea of customizing our ships in game, which I think is still continuing to be a bit of a worry, where the ideas that I think a lot of people want seem to be going against what the marketing's going to be doing. And I kind of wish that they'd kept with skins being like really distinctive textures, decals, and patterns that we could still incorporate with some customization. But I worry that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen the decals like in World of Tanks, not World of Tanks, War of Thunder, where you get the decals and you could then put them on your ship and modify where they went and kind of apply that. But I think you're right. I think the skins idea, the idea of even players being able to create the skins and paint around ships, I think that's gone. I think, well, just because skins are worth so much money.
I don't think it actually discounts us being able to do that in game that much. In the same way that I can go onto the website right now and buy a Prospector, or I can save up for 2 weeks and buy it in game. There's no reason why I can't buy those skins in game for a UEC price, or pay for a customization skin in game for a UEC price. Still make it expensive, but I don't currently see it as any issue. maybe down the line, once we get closer to release, if they're still doing it that way, then I would be more inclined to think that, we're setting sail.
One of the early things they talked about with skins was that players would be able to make their own skins outside a game and then import them. So you'd be able to paint your cutlass, whatever color you designed, and put that on your ship. Whereas that idea seems to have sailed. It seems to be better custom skin. You go custom crows and then get a set, choose from a set skin selection, or you can go buy it at the shop. That seems to be where it is now.
I think that'll change. Where you can get like maybe a skin, and skin's more like a pattern where you can fill in that pattern with colors you want to, because they wouldn't have something like Cousin Crows if it was just a shop to sell like skins. That seems like a lot of work for just not a lot of payout. So I'm hoping we'll see.
I think skins in terms of giving us custom materials and custom zones, as you're saying, and decals, that all still gels with the idea of being able to like change what goes in those zones and where those materials are applied.
Yeah. I do want to thank Galtaki, Danger Mooseface, Hobbitborg, Urkel, and Lito Drifter Boy for $20, $20, $20, $20, and $100. So we're now at $4,221 for Doctors Without Borders. So,
damn, well done.
Thank you all. We're getting closer. We're almost there. We got about, what is it, $260? We got $260. We can do that. All right. Next question comes from Ferric Veer, who asks, if the Liberator is meant to be used in invasions with Valkyries and Hercs, what is the monster ship that could possibly carry these numbers to launch in said invasion? Nothing. Nothing's supposed to carry these things. Like maybe like a Bengal might launch the Valks, but like these are not designed. Like the Liberator is designed to fly on its own with fleet support.
Yeah, they'll deploy from wherever their base is.
Yeah, and they even talk about this is one of the things where they talk about the Liberator being a long range ship. Switching back to their long range option instead of saying it means it's got a gun that fires long range. It's a long range ship because it travels long distances again, which really frustrates me the way we'll just change our language. Oh no, we always meant long range means this. But, it's marketing for you. But yeah,
as someone's saying, it flies with the fleet, not with it. So you'd expect it to be part of like a flotilla, a battle group with, like a javelin being the main guns, and maybe even holding the crew while their ships are on the little bits, and then Argo's moving them between them.
Yeah, I got the impression, like people were talking about being the hovercraft, and I got the impression when I saw it of the World War II invasion of Normandy, where they're piling the guys on those landing, the ships that were sailing across the channel and dumping, and that's
I actually see it more as like
on the deck type thing.
I actually see it more as like those boats that would come in after the Higgins boats, and like the front would open up and they would roll the ramps down. They would just drive Shermans, like 400 Shermans out of those things, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I think the only problem with its design is that you're right. It's like the Higgins boat for crossing the Channel. It's not like the boat for crossing the Atlantic.
Yeah,
you're not going to keep your crew happy for that kind of duration.
Yeah. So it's long range, and that's where I find the struggle. That's where I really feel it's lacking it. It's a long range ship in that it can travel vast distances, and yet it's a short range ship because the crew that you're transporting there's no support for them. I think there's a kitchen, and I think there's those types of things, but there's no even bunks where they can bunk down. It's almost they have to go back into their ship and
they'd have to be on like the Javelin, which is part of the group, before we even get there.
And that's why we use the MPVU to bring them across.
Yep. Next question comes from Del Ener, who asks, what Pyro lore is the most interesting or exciting for y'all? And what would you like CIG to explore further with Pyro? Let's start with you, I would say Croncy, but do you know any Pyro lore, Croncy?
UEE used to be there, now they're not.
Okay. Jail?
I'm still kind of like pushing the idea that maybe there's a small Banu presence based on the idea that some mining lore for Banu turned up, but so let me explain. There's a forum where they post new words that are adding to the dictionaries for Xi'an and Banu, and August last year they added a huge list of Banu mining vocabulary, but unlike usually, those will correspond to an article's coming out which is going to use this language, so you need this so you can translate it, like with the Gatak letter we had earlier this year. It's never actually linked to anything, and there's not even that mining language in the older Xi'an language. So I still kind of think there might be a Banu outpost, but really the best lore is the lore we haven't heard yet, because Pyro didn't really have much lore. It wasn't really kind of like written as the most important second system we were going to get. It's become that. And I think the bit which I find interesting in development are the gangs of Pyro, the idea that each has their own niche, each has their own HQ, each has their own vibe, and that's the lore that I'm most excited about for Pyro.
Yeah, and I think we know. I think in one of the last episodes when they were talking about the lore, they said, "Oh, we know of." They rattled off. I think Jared and Jeremiah were talking about the gangs in Pyro, and they rattled. I know it was Dave Haddock and Co. when they were talking the gangs in Pyro and stuff, and they rattled off 10 that they knew of, and probably the biggest one and the one we know most about is Xenothreat, and they control Pyro Station, and we know from the lore that they're ex-military. I refer to them as Meserites because they seem to really hate the current establishment, and look back to the heyday. They're like the old guard of the old Russian Soviet Union, and they're the KGB kind of callback guys, and not people you want to cross.
What do you think?
I think they've made Xenothreat almost a bit too evil, given that they're supposed to. Ruined Station is supposed to be the place that is like the most facilities. Whereas Xenothreat kind of feel like the kind of people who wouldn't let anyone else land there.
Yeah, I feel like they made Xenothreat feel evil in Stanton. I feel like when you meet them in Pyro, they're gonna be a lot more sympathetic. They might be distrustful. They might be a lot more wary of you. But I don't know. What do you think, Al? What's your favorite Pyro?
I get the idea that the way Xenothreat sold themselves to Stan is we're really peeved off, and we're coming to get rid of the evil corporate empire. We're going to engage them in combat. You either support us and stay away, but if you turn up and you get in our way, we're going to consider you hostile and we're going to blow you up. So stay away. So it's not as if they didn't warn us. Their announcement basically said, we're coming, get out of the way. We're coming for those who fight against us. It just so happens that the Civilian Defence Force went, you beauty, interest us to kill. And we all turned up in our retaliators and hammerheads and Argos and whatever else, and blew up 1,000 Idrises.
A bunch of farmers with shotguns blowing up military grade equipment.
That's right.
I guess I just think that Ruined Station as the sort of Tortuga of Pyro, it would make a little bit more sense if their current owners of that were kind of profit motivated people who you can buy their goodwill, whereas Xenothreat are ideologists, and like so the idea that they would welcome you just on the grounds of like you got credits. I mean, most of us have already killed many of their mates, so it feels like there's going to be a location.
That's okay. They didn't send the messages back, but told them who did it. So the comm systems were down.
I will say my favorite aspect of the lore is the gangs, and to see the interesting dynamics of them all fighting each other. Like the Enforcers are a fantastic, interesting gang of like, no one knows who they are. They just like messing people up. And the idea of having this entire set of 10, 20, 30, 40 groups of people who are just all gunning for each other all the time, 24/7, sounds cool because it sounds like utter madness, and that's the exact same kind of thing that you want to inject a player into, because that's just content. It's fun, you know.
Speaking of content and fun, maybe like when Pyro launches, we're gonna have like the final push on the Xenothreat event, push them out of Ruin Station in a space battle. It becomes a land battle, and then someone else is going to take over before, like, and that's going to be like the first event that not only is a big player event but has a meaningful impact on the game going forward.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That'd be really great.
Is it are they the better mob to have running Ruin Station? You know, it's a bit like Turf War. You've got the different gangs with the different turfs, and I know that we know that they've put in a whole pile of different little rest stops, but and I imagine those rest stops are being controlled by different gangs. The question is which gangs are going to hold the biggest sway, and I can see Pyro being, in terms of the player existence, in some sense it's the hard mode, but people always say it's a hard mode because I can have faction with Xenothreat, but I go across the road and I don't have faction with the headhunters. And so if I'm in Xenothreat territory and I've got faction with them and I'm buddies with them, and you attack me, you're taking on Xenothreat as well. So it becomes that. But if I chase you into headhunter territory and you've got faction there and I don't, it's suddenly hard mode for me, as opposed to, so there's that element of hard mode, easy mode. If you've got faction if you've got the faction or the reputation with them, it's easy mode for you. A bit like pirates coming into Stanton. If you don't have that reputation, it's hard mode. If you've got the reputation, it becomes relatively easier mode. And I think for people in Stanton, it's easier to have that positive faction or positive reputation, whereas I think in Pyro, it'll with the criminal gangs, it'll be harder to establish and maintain rep.
Yeah.
Could we possibly see, like, maybe at Ruin Station during the course of the game that there are these actual, like, gang takeovers? And so now, yeah, cool, you've got your Xenothreat reputation. But now, next week, whoops, all the players that really big fans of, I don't know, whatever the Fire Boys are called, because they're sort of the only ones I know of.
Fire Rats.
Fire Rats, yeah. Now Fire Rats control Ruin Station. Now you've got to change your entire, like, now you've got to make sure that you're either on a good side with them or you're plotting next week to take it back from them.
I would love that.
I think,
I think honestly, and by the way, it's the overlords, not the enforcers. I don't know why I call them enforcers, but the overlords. This like kind of vigilante Batman group. I'd love to see. I'd love to see content in Pyro, which is focused on players controlling the narrative. If a number of players want to flip Pyro, a Ruin Station, and give it to another gang, they should be able to do it. It'd be a fantastic way of getting players involved in Pyro and cause more conflict, because then, that one crew that's like, no, I don't want you to flip Pyro. I don't want you to flip Ruin. I want the overlords to be here. Why are you bringing the Fire Rats in here? No, stop. And now you've got players butting in on each other. They're fighting each other over the territories as well as the NPCs. It creates a lot of conflict, and that kind of chaos is where players will be drawn to, because it's money or reputation or something will be at value over there. So
I think this is Paul just pushing his take over Hurston.
Listen, I am going to overthrow the Hurstons. I'm going to conquer Lorville.
No, you've already called for me to be old man Hurston, so no, you can't do that.
I think that if you ask Tony Z, he's going to be like, oh yeah, that's totally what we're going to do. We're going to have these, it's going to be fed by Quantum, and like, yeah, sure, that'll be the end goal. The idea of having the gangs are fighting over it, and we can influence that, and that can change. Though I think that in the short term, a scripted displacement would be a great thing for them to do. To a final act to the Xenothreat saga.
Yes.
Because I don't think they're anywhere near being able to have it be the dynamic thing we want.
Yeah.
To answer someone else's question quickly in the chat, it's actually Yorkshire Gold that I'm drinking.
Yorkshire Gold.
Yeah.
I was gonna say oh gosh, what is his name? The Spiffing Brit.
Spiffing Brit.
Yeah.
It's the best. So.
It's the best. I'm perfectly balanced, as all things should be, just like Star Citizen's gameplay.
What's that you're drinking, Al?
I'm finishing off geisha coffee.
Okay.
So,
nice.
So really, really nice coffee. So,
and one last point about Ruin Station. It's actually a Gold Horizon station originally, and Gold Horizon stations were planned as the player contestable stations. So I don't know if Ruin Station is going to be exempted from that idea, or if that idea even still exists. But it's entirely possible that at a certain point you might be able to displace it of NPCs entirely and have it as a player-run thing. So that would not be a bad thing at all. Possibly even easier to implement.
I wonder whether that would be a good thing or a bad thing. I personally think because it's a position to the jump point, it probably would be a bad thing to have it as player controlled. Because that means the players are then controlling that jump point, and that means they're controlling the trade. And I think that's one of the things the IG have wanted to avoid, players being able to impact the economy so greatly. But I think we will find dozens of ruins of Gold Horizon stations out there, a bit like the Bengal.
I don't believe it is near the jump point. I think that's a different station.
Yeah, isn't it on the opposite side? It's like on the opposite side of the system, I think.
Unless they moved it, I wasn't sure. I thought that the stations nearer the jump point were new in their presentation.
Possibly.
Not sure. Not certain.
All right, I do want to thank the Astronaut and Mooncat for donating $10 and $25, respectively. We're now at about less than $250, $244. So there you go. MSF.
I tried. I forgot how letters worked.
Yeah. There you go. Donate that.
I really love how
Ramar. Ramar. That you're thinking Spider. Cathcart. Spider. Spider is the one that's made out of ship holes. Pyro's made out of an old ruined station. Old Gold Horizon station. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think the difference between them is Spider is more soft crime, if anything, whereas Pyro is more overwhelmed by the bad crime, and you kind of get these three levels. You've got the places like that's a place in Nick's Delamar, Levski, which is kind of the people who want to be away, and they're now struggling with criminals coming in and trying to have their influence. Then you've got places like Spider, which is kind of the same, but there's a lot more criminal activity in there. And then you've got Pyro, which is like nightmarish.
I think also Spider's big enough that there's many gangs. So that's the better analogy for Tortuga, whereas Ruin Station is like the biggest single gang holdout in Pyro. But I also think that it's possible that we'll eventually end up with we currently have a binary crime stat. You're either on one side of the law or the other. And there's a possibility that Rep could get so bad with the pirate factions, they don't want you in Pyro, they don't want you in Cathcart, and you end up in, I think it's called Null, where you've got Ashana, and it's just slavers and the worst place to be. And then you might have to build your way back out.
Isn't Ashana where the head honcho there is Tavarin?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not exactly the nicest dude, though.
But I love that we can have this lore conversation and it all melds into the gameplay, and it both inform the other, and that's part of the beauty of how they develop it.
I like the way sometimes as we talk, Crunchy goes, "What?"
Yeah. Well,
I'm learning a lot here.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I was going to mention, like you can't they're too entangled with one another. You can't untangle them. And the more that this game's developed, the more they're going to be tighter together. So, like, knowing each of the gangs of Pyro is going to be very important, because where you want to operate, what you want to do in Pyro is going to determine who you want to work with. And those sorts of things are important to know. And so you're going to have to learn about these guys and what they do and how they operate, because, you know, you might be asked to execute a civilian because they stole bread. And, you know, the question becomes, do you want to do that? And how bad is that going to hit your other reputation such? So I do want to say we got little Drifter Boy donated $244, Anonymous $20, and Croncy another $30. So we're now at $4,550 for Doctors Without Borders. So we've made that.
And now we're pushing for 5,000.
Yes. I'm not going to update the goal though. I'm pushing for 5,000. But yeah, if you want to drop that
10,000, Paul for another 16 hours.
Yes. No, don't do that. Not going to do that.
Right, you heard it here first. Paul said yes to 10,000 for another 16 hours.
I'm too sleepy. I'm too sleepy. It's not going to happen. I can't be held to contracts at this state of mind.
Just remember, Paul. It's just like the funding here on Star Citizen. You know, you reach this goal, we've got another stretch goal coming. $10,000 stretch goal. Paul stays for another 16 hours.
Oh God. Ash Rackham asks, do you think they will ever put the Blue Man in game? The infamous cryptid, the Blue Man.
Never heard of it. I was thinking of the Blue Men from Firefly.
So the Blue Man is a cryptid that shows up on ships and sometimes on planets of the Hades system. There's no stories. There are some myths about him. There's a story that may involve the Blue Man called Shadows. I think it was the archaeologist tale.
Whispers in the Dark, wasn't it?
Whispers in the Dark, yeah. So the Blue Man is a figure that is a humanoid figure that looks translucent with blue veins that just shows up on people's ships.
Yeah, it's kind of like Mothman.
Yeah,
the Mothman prophecy, kind of that idea. And the story Whispers in the Dark has this girl going through these ruins and
to collect a Hadesian artifact.
Yeah, and all really nasty, and she swears to someone watching her or doing stuff, and she gets back to her ship and realizes, oh, my tank was damaged. Was I suffering from oxygen deprivation, or was it really? You know, so it's really, you know, that.
Yeah, there's that question.
I think we'll see the Jupiter before the Crusader Jupiter before we see the Blue Man.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. We're still a long way from Hades too. So, all right, we've got Ash Rackham asks, if you could have any ship in the lore that is not currently planned as concept, which would it be?
Oh.
I'm not gonna go for the easy one. I'm gonna go for the Aegis Bearcat. There's
Please explain.
The Aegis Bearcat was a competitor to the Hawk. They're both on the same bid. The Hawk won because it actually did what the bid wanted it to do, but the Bearcat was a better fighter. Like the bid was, it can mess up ground targets. Not very good. It doesn't have to be a good dogfighter, but it can do escort missions. That's about it. So it does really good at what it does, but not much better. So the Bearcat was like Aegis's attempt at being like, yeah, we can do this, and it's like, yeah, it did okay with escorting. It was a really good fighter, but it didn't do so well with ground targets. So it's like this is a brand new Aegis ship built from the ground up. One of the firsts in a long time. So I'd be interested to see what the Bearcat would be like.
It'd be cool to get to fly some of the really ancient ships. It's like the Zeus.
Yeah. That was the easy one. That was the easy one I was going for. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to pick the Zeus.
The easy one to go for is the crab ship from the originals. You know, the upright crab ship that was in the back of the carrier in one of the early things. Because it's in lore, because it's in the early videos, but we all know that it was just filler. But for me, the actual lore ship that I'd love to have is the AI bomber that almost caused war with the Xi'an, which the UEE had to go hunt down and destroy. Go to the Law Citizen podcast to find out more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Crunchy. I think I'd want old battleships. Old ships, but I'd want old battleships. So I'd want the Indomitable class battleship, or the battle cruiser, whatever battle cruiser class that we don't know the name of, that became the UES Africanus, which was like they chopped like an out of date, obsolete battle cruiser into a carrier. Like I want to see some of like the old
You want to see
UEM
something like the Tiger
ships.
Claw.
Yeah, like I want to see. I want to
Star
see
Citizen version of Tiger Claw. Yeah.
Yeah. The ships that they used to fight, that used to be part of the Perry line fleets, but are obsolete now. I want to see those.
Well, I think we've got them. That's a Javelin.
Well, the one
Javelin's obsolete and being farmed off. I always wonder if the Javelin's the obsolete ship that they're getting rid of. What's the destroyer that's replacing it?
I just like to see, like even if you show me a Mark 1 Constellation which didn't have the snub, it had a segregated cockpit, segregated from the rest of the ship, not like segregated within the cockpit. It had all these other features which are completely different to the Mark 4 Constellation we have now. I want to see that lineage. I think that'd be really interesting.
The 600i Cargo, the original 600i Cargo. The original 600i was a cargo vessel. A lot of people don't know that. It was a blue collar cargo vessel. That's the new lore that's coming out there. Because I
wouldn't mind seeing the early variants of the early Connie. So I remember the lore story of a Connie that had looked really patched together, and going through, and I thought, what's that? Oh, we've rigged it. We've got a size 3 cannon fired out the back. So it's I think that was
the
sorry?
Void Rats.
I was going to say, I believe it's the Void Rats.
Yeah.
I went and reread that recently after one of our lore podcasts when we were talking favorite lore stories.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten the story, and I went back and read it.
Good.
Well, we're still missing the Devastator and the Osprey from Anvil.
Yep. Still missing Devastator and the Osprey. I wonder if the Osprey is going to end up being retconned into the Liberator, though.
Probably. I could easily do that.
Ash Rackham asks, probably flying through the clouds for me. I don't know what that means, but okay. Kuno asks, I love the Origin aesthetic, especially the 100 and 300 series, but am I the only person who thinks the glasswork on the 400i looks like a horrible Max Headroom throwback in the ugliest way? I see those windows and looks like a cheesy guy in a suit and a flat top haircut would wear those windows as a cheesy sunglasses. Am I the only one thinking this?
Sorry, the person saying it's a bad thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. It looks fine to me, but
it reminds me of like high-end racing yachts, and that's good.
Yeah.
The closest I got to thinking the glasswork looked weird is I was looking at a front view of it, and I thought the glasswork made me think of Cylons.
Mm-hmm.
The slit on the Cylon head. That's what it made me think of. It just needed that red thing going.
Mm-hmm.
The classic old Cylon.
Oh yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah. I think the surprising thing was that there aren't many windows inside the ship. There's just like the front and the back, isn't there?
Yeah.
That was, I thought, one of the stranger choices.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty good windows for coverage, but they're pretty.
It's one of
small.
At least it's not like Miss seemed to not Miss Crusader seemed to avoid windows elsewhere in the ship. You got the cockpit window, no windows elsewhere. They got rid of the windows in the MSR. The Hercules doesn't seem to have any. You go into a Hammerhead and you've got windows looking out through the needle, the eye of the needle, and you go into an Aurora and you go into the bed and you can actually kind of tilt your head and look out the side windows. But Crusader ships, no.
Maybe it's a budget thing. These are all newer ships and they have fewer windows. Maybe they've realized the budget on those windows is a bit too punishing.
I feel like it's but I do feel like it's relevant for the aesthetic of those ships, though, because a lot of those ships are designed to be, Well, they're just like Millennium Falcon ripoffs and stuff, right? So, barring the fact that I feel like there should be at least an observation deck maybe on a couple of them. I don't find it too weird.
Well, the original MSR did have a window that looked out the front from the. I'm pretty certain it was a window in the entertainment lounge that looked out the front as well. So I know there was a skylight somewhere, but I'm pretty certain it was a window there as well. But yeah, it's lots of ships have changed a little, or in some cases a lot.
All right, QPan asks this. I think this is for the Aussies. Vegemite or peanut butter on toast?
Peanut butter.
Neither on toast.
What?
Peanut butter.
I'd have to go with neither on toast. I don't like Vegemite, and I don't think peanut butter on toast would be a good idea.
Nutella on toast.
There we go.
My wife's a big Marmite fan, but Vegemite is just pale imitation.
Wow. I don't like Vegemite, and you just made an enemy for life. Wow.
I'll say Vegemite's better because the original Vegemite came out of the vats.
Vegemite
so that's where Marmite comes from. No,
yeah, they copied us.
I'm Tim Bovril, beef tea. And that's better on toast. It's beefy.
Beef tea?
Beef tea. Yeah, it's a great when you go to a football match, half time, go and get your tea, coffee, Bovril.
So it's a soup.
It's a lot of things to a lot of people. It's kind of like it's a Vegemite-like paste, but it's made of beef. Right. So you can spread it on toast. You could put it in your stew as a stock, or you can make it as a beverage. It's proper British ingenuity.
All right.
A bit like HP sauce or Worcester sauce, huh?
Yeah.
Chuck it into anything.
Ooh. Gosh, I got 2 more hours to go.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Ooh, okay. More questions, chat.
Can we get to 5,000? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Let's get to 5,000 for Médecins Sans Frontières.
Sandgroper asks, Paul, have you got Algrid to write lines, or does he have detention for his line timekeeping error? No, he's fine. He's fine. All right. Execute asks, how much for charity for beard? How much for charity for the beard, Croncy? If you shaved your beard off entirely, how much for charity would you do that?
Entirely?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't been clean shaven since 2014.
Oh. Oof.
And I'm young.
Yeah.
So was that an execute question?
Yeah, it was an execute question.
Of course. It's always execute.
I think if Croncy, if he's asking you that one,
yeah,
it's a double deal. How much for both of you?
Yeah. Execute. We hit 7. You got a deal, but you have to do it too.
I just started a new job, and I've been terrified where I might need to shave my beard off, and I've been waiting for that to fall on me all week. Just like, oh, when are they going to tell me that I need to shave my beard off? I can't stand that idea. Oh
yeah.
I was clean shaven about 3 weeks ago, and my students all complained. and when I came back after we just had 2 weeks holiday, and when we came back last week, the students were, oh, you've got your beard back, sir. Oh, so I can't. My students all cry.
You Red Bull DoorDash? No, I got G Fuel. I'm fine. It's more of those like I've done these enough times for 24 hours to know that the last like 2 hours are just absolute murder, because it's like time slows down and it's just like everything drags, which is the reason why I decided to start at like ungodly early in the morning, so that when it slows down and I've got 2 hours left, it's like I got 2 hours left until like 5 a.m. So then I can go to bed and wake up at like
unless
2.
we get 10,000, in which case,
oh gosh, no,
you're here for another
no,
16 hours.
not gonna happen. Oh,
well, looking at the time we've got and looking at the
you can do a sleep stream.
No, yeah, you can do a sleep stream.
You just roll sitcon over while you're asleep.
This is why I voted for this. I thought it was
get the lamp.
The most help to like,
Yeah.
get
you know, get the lamp, Paul. Put the lamp up. Or back in 10.
I'm Mooncat asks, and we'll start with you, Algrid. I'm gonna use the rest of them quickly. Asks, what hollow image would you put in your Banu Merchantman marketplace? Let's go.
Depends on what I've got. I think generally I just go for things that make people feel comfortable. So, yeah, I don't know. If I had something really rare, I'd probably put that up there. I think it's, yeah, I haven't given it thought. I'd be more interested to know what I'm putting on the holograms going up the stairwell, whether they can be different ones or whether they're big things. But the big one, whatever. What about you, Joe?
I think like I would have if I could have any hologram there, I would have a Banu language advert for Bovril, advertising it to the Banu. It would be like Pachu Pachu Abovrilo, and which means like buy Bovril, and I can't remember what tasty is. And it'd be very much like in the vein of that sort of bang 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 Barney Defender advert, but for Bovril.
When are Benny's going to release some Bovril? That's what we need to know.
Beef tea flavored Benny's. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes great with a human meat bar.
What about you?
I would just have a giant dollar sign. Just a rotating giant dollar sign. You need to let people know up front what's going to happen when they get in here, and the answer is, I'm going to take your money.
The cash pay up.
Yeah, a nice frothy beer mug. That's what it'd be. A nice frothy beer mug. There you go.
I'm surprised you don't have, in yours. It's a glowing globe that's spinning around, sparkling lights everywhere.
Yeah,
kind of like your disco. Because I know you want that purple. That purple cutlass for for the party show. Why do that? You've got a Banu. Just hang it.
Speaking of the purple cutlass.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
but just hang your hologram ball in your Banu.
Yeah,
you've got all your stalls selling your different beers.
Mm-hmm.
You can do Oktoberfest in the Banu.
Omega's pointed out that we should have the UEC symbol, which is like a circle with 4 little legs coming off.
Yeah.
The symbol for unknown currency at the moment in the real world.
Yeah. Who painted it? I did.
Yeah. What's that?
Someone's asking who painted this. I did. This is actually a JRDF model. So JRDF makes the official models. They make these small scale models. They also make some little bigger ones. So I had to assemble this and paint this. I painted this before CitizenCon, so during CitizenCon. So, all right. Next question comes from Tarnfolk, who asks, "Any thoughts on using the Liberator as a cargo ship?"
It could be a lot of wasted. I mean, I think the idea is that they're going with the ship and cargo grids being separate still, like they did originally with the Valkyrie, but they've sidestepped by going, here's your cargo grid. It does 400. Was it 400 SCU?
400 SCU.
Then, yeah, and then here's all these vehicle grids which cannot be put on. So it'd be wasting a lot of space.
Yeah, and they've even done that with the 890. Like the 890 has the ship landing pad, but it's got cargo grids on the side of that hangar, and that's currently the only cargo area that's working. But it's even got it's got its proper cargo bay isn't working just because it's either the cargo bay or the hangar, it's, and they've got issues with that. But yeah, it does seem that they don't want the cargo bay and the vehicle pads to be working the same, and they really seem to have made that exception to the Valkyrie.
And someone's pointed out that you could have cargo in the ships that are on the pads.
Mm.
Sure, yeah, that would work.
Yeah, and people do that do that in the 890. They'd land a ship with cargo in it to increase the cargo capacity of the 890. I don't know of other ships they do that in or do that with at the moment, but they certainly do that with the 890.
This is something which has been a bit of a bee in my bonnet about cargo and limitations on cargo, because I think that they've done a lot of arbitrary line drawing where they say this can be done like this and this can be done like this, and then not really giving any kind of reasoning behind it when there is reasoning that could be said. Because vehicles are really low density compared to the cargo they include. Like an Ursa, if you think about how many boxes it would displace, is around the same density as polystyrene foam. It's really light. It's just that, well, like the materials are heavy, but they're only in certain places and it's full of air. So I've always felt that when they come to these ships where they're trying to balance it between having space for vehicles or ships or space for cargo, they could so much more lean on the idea of like the mass of the thing, saying these pads are only rated for mass up to this level before the coupling goes away, or even the engines for lifting this ship can only go to, you know, like they're geared towards this kind of cargo weight. And then as soon as you start replacing a vehicle with like vats of beer, which are about 1 ton per cubic meter, you're finding, oh, actually, I'm overladen. Like my ship was designed to carry that kind of mass.
And when you look at ships like the Idris, Idris P, Idris M, the Starfarer, and the Starfarer G, one of the things I always used to say about those ships early on was they've got armor, they've got extra, the M and the G have extra armor, they've got these things, and because of the extra armor and extra weight, they actually have less cargo space. But when you go inside a G and you go inside a regular Starfarer, the cargo hold is exactly the same room. And so how is that the case that it can carry less? And the only one that makes sense is the fact that it's that weight that the engines just, if you're fully laden with that extra cargo, you just can't take off as much. And so I think it makes sense to kind of look at those law issues, and actually I'd like to see them apply those conditions even more.
All right.
I think it also saves the Reliant. The Reliant can be like, I can lift blocks of lead where a Cutlass will not, although it has big, an Avenger Titan, which is a police van with the cell taken out, like wouldn't be able to lift that kind of massive stuff in one go, like a Reliant could. Anyway, sorry, that's a bit,
like an
bit of a digression.
MPVU.
Yeah, like an MPV.
I'll push the Barrow for the MPVU.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
still think the MPVU is a great ship in law.
Yeah.
It may not be necessarily a great ship in game, but it's a great ship in law, and
it's going to be a great ship in game. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great ship in game. Its purposes really hasn't been met yet. It's true brilliance.
Yeah. I think if it gets those articulated arms on it as were originally concepted, it'll be an absolute gem. But
Drake Jester asks, when do you think the Caterpillar main ship will detach from the cargo portion?
Probably sooner than most people think.
You reckon?
The testing of snubcraft in general, because really they could just make it teched like a snubcraft. Has been going on for 6 months now, since 313. Modularity is something that's also, it seems not to be too far away with the way that they're doing the Retaliator and they're getting that into to gold standard. So we have our actual first, whether we can do it or not, but we have our actual first modular ship. So, I mean, I'm always way optimistic. Tomorrow.
1 hour.
Yeah,
1
tomorrow.
hour.
1 hour.
Answer. Right there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next year we get at least the detaching and that sort of thing.
I think it depends on several things. One is having the shipping game as a separate ship, so that they haven't got the command module as a separate ship yet, so they would have to redo that.
Yeah, it'd be a rework.
Whereas you look at the P-52, that was a separate flyable ship before they even had the docking. You've got the docking, you've got the refueling mechanic, which is basically using docking. You've got the station docking that's doing the same thing. So yeah, so I think that snub ship docking has tied into the space station docking. It's tied into even the expansion of the Hull series. But I think the key thing that's going to stop that, because they could easily, as you said, Croncy, they could easily use the docking mechanism on the station docking that they use for the 890 for the docking of the module to the Caterpillar body. But I think what holds it back is having that little module as a separate flyable ship, and I don't know whether they've got that done yet. It's just they've got the model for it, but is it flyable? Do they have the components in it? Does all of that stuff, and the flight model for that isn't done, and that'll be what holds that up.
What excites me about that is if we detach while the main engines are still on, are they going to stay on? And the main body becomes like a missile. Yeah. I've been watching these. I've been catching up on the Expanse. I'm thinking that's some like belter loader tactics right there.
Yeah, there we go.
My question with that is, if you tried to do that, because your little ship on your little your little command module is not as big as the engines on the Cat. If you try and detach, are you going to rip your ship apart?
I think it's going to be fun to see.
Yeah.
You can guarantee that once it can be done, people are going to try it.
Yep. All right.
Down with
Justine asks, they mentioned that the same people who could fix desync are the ones working on server meshing. Would you prefer server meshing ASAP and deal with a desync, or delay server meshing for less or no desync? I think it's a false dichotomy. You can't really, you're not going to get necessarily better desync, because here's the problem. Desync is bad now. You work on server meshing, and server meshing might fix some of the problems with desync. It may not fix any of the problems with desync, but there's a high probability that you stop server meshing, you start working on desync, and then when desync is finished, you finish working on desync, you start working back on server meshing, that server meshing causes the desync to get worse again, because you have to like redo what you're doing before, because you're optimizing code that's not optimized for the server meshing that you need beforehand. I feel like server meshing is such a basic component that you can't really touch the other stuff, the optimizations for things like desync until after that code's implemented. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. What do y'all think?
No, you're on the point. Right on the point.
Yeah, and I think we see that those complaints about that already. You know, we need more gameplay. We need more gameplay, and then we get more gameplay, and people are saying, "Oh, well, why are you wasting time doing this when you should be getting the game complete?" And it's part of that whole thing. Do we want it's fix the back end, or we fix this? Why hadn't they worked on Arena Commander or Space Marine? Because they stopped using them as a test bed. When they brought them out, they were basically the test bed for working on those gameplay things. But they started to use the PTU, and the PTU was where we were using, and the current, the live version of PTU, were where they were getting their testing, and so they didn't need to use those for their testing mechanism. Could they have gone back and worked on them and polished them up and made them really awesome? Yeah, but that wouldn't have necessarily helped with developing and pushing the game forward or the development of all up. And so it really is a crux issue. Do you fix on this and then have to go back and fix it again because
I mean, there's a lot of conversation happening in chat because there's a lot of different ideas about what's actually really happening there under the hood. I do agree with you, Paul, that it's not like there is a false dichotomy there, but there's two aspects to it, because desync is at some level going to be dependent on the tick rate of the server, and things work better when it's a new server, but that's partly because there's fewer people attached to it, and there's two ways to improve that. Have the server do less and have the server do the same, do what it does more efficiently. And having the server do less, that's your server meshing. That's what we need server meshing to accomplish that, unless we start removing content like they did with Nyx. With Levski and Delamo. And the making it go more efficiently, like we all want to see that. But I think either approach, you're still working on the same code, even if you're not working to achieve this exactly the same end. So, like, I would prefer to see server meshing accomplished before working on the efficiency issues of the existing things, personally. But I don't have the insight, and none of us will have the insight to really say what's more achievable and whether there's a blocker there. Like, do we have to address some of these other problems before we can consider doing server meshing properly? Or are they one and the same fix, essentially? That bit needs to be rebuilt and it's going to work now more efficiently and be ready for server meshing.
I think there are times that they've talked about given that idea where we're not working on this because we're working on this and this is kind of addressing this issue. But I don't think they've come out and said it across the board. It's kind of little snippets here and there. But how much of what they're doing is really working, is really doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm sure you guys don't know either, but
no. Yeah. I mean, and that's the problem, is that, look, we don't have access to all the information. CIG does. No. And yeah. the people who run the CIG netcode team are smart, not dumb. They've done this before. They've done several projects like this before. I would trust their judgment on what should be prioritized, what shouldn't be, based off of their own. Just like, and I'm sure.
Great news, guys. We're only $5,400 away from Paul doing another 16 hours, and only $3,400 getting rid of their beards.
Yeah.
If I could reframe that last question, would you rather have Stanton running perfectly, or would you rather be able to explore Pyro with the current level of performance? Because personally, I would rather explore Pyro with the current level of performance.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of looking at it.
I actually don't know if I would agree with that. As in that answer to that reframe. If Stanton was running perfectly
with this current
that's pretty
with
high.
Current gameplay, no new gameplay.
Current gameplay. Yeah, sorry.
So you've got rid of 30Ks, but you've got exactly the same gameplay as you've got at the moment. So no DC.
Yeah, no, then I would want the additional.
Or do you want be able to go through, have exactly the same style of 30Ks and stuff, but have Pyro? And I think everyone in the community would say Pyro.
Yeah.
And possibly Nyx at the same time.
Yeah. Well, again, conspiracy theory hat. I think Nyx and Pyro are going to drop at the same time. Because
I think that's a given. Yeah.
Because Nyx has been worked on since June, and we already know Pyro's. The planets seem to be done in some way, shape. We don't know if all the planets are done. We know that a lot of the planets are finishing up.
Based on roadmap, Pyro is supposed to be done. I think it was mid-Jan or mid-Feb. And that's just the stations that are left, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Nyx is done.
Yeah.
One of the things from SystemCon that actually I was really impressed with the planets was that they do look so distinctively interesting and new and not quite the same as what we've seen before. And it's hitting that mark of being different without being like cotton candy planets, like sort of No Man's Sky, sort of really, really kind of outlandish levels of difference, which is just the style that they have in that game. That was really encouraging.
Yeah, and it's not elite style how planet type. You see elite planets and you might have a different mountain, but everything looks the same. You go to, and I got the same feeling with No Man's Sky. The planets were different, but they were the same. But the planet they showed us for Pyro, totally different from anything we've seen in Stanton. And yet they've still got that procedural generation, but they've got the artist working on them as well. And I think that really does raise the standard of those.
Plus all the stuff that we saw a couple of ISCs ago of the tech that they were using on Nyx. They were showing us a bit of the height maps and stuff like that. What they're doing with those planets and moons and stuff is absolutely amazing. I don't get it. I just don't.
Okay, so let me explain. Let me explain something. The people who work at Frankfurt are insane.
Mm-hmm.
They are insane. These are the people who built the original CryEngine. So these are the people who said, let's build an engine for, was it Crisis originally, or was it Far Cry originally?
I think it was Crisis originally.
Crisis.
Yeah,
would have been.
Let's build this game and to test this new engine, and we're just going to build a realistic HDR looking jungle, and then freeze it, and then give you a realistic HDR frozen area, and in the early 2000s. So these are the kind of people who are obsessed with pushing technology, obsessed with trying to get that bleeding edge of what is possible. And then Chris Roberts handed them a blank check.
Yep.
And said,
"What can you do?
Make a universe."
I think it was even more.
They're in heaven. I think these guys are just sitting there going, "I'm doing everything I wanted to do," and that's why they'll never stop working until they're satisfied and never be satisfied. So we're going to constantly they will be finished when they can get individual reads to break properly when you hit them. The little fuzz that goes. They're going to try to map that fuzz distribution based off of wind patterns that you see locally and your own movement around it. That's what they'll do. They're going to say that like that. So
I can remember Chris Roberts when they first did the pupil to space, that episode. And I can remember Chris Roberts saying around the time that it was something he'd hoped they could do down the track.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the guys at the Frankfurt office says, "Hey, look what we can do." And I got the impression that while they'd created the CryEngine, they had been then locked in. The publishers were saying, "No, don't change it, don't change it, don't change it," and they didn't have that freedom to explore themselves. And they come to Star Citizen, and it was, do what you can.
I mean,
we've got so much to do what you can, and they just went freedom, and it was for.
I think the story behind how we ended up with Planet Tech also really reveals how great a manager Brian Chambers is.
Mm-hmm.
Because Brian Chambers is in charge of Frankfurt. Frankfurt exists to poach talent from Crytek. They didn't choose Frankfurt for any other reason other than the fact that that's where the Crytek Europe office is. So devs can quit that job, start a CIG, and not have to move house.
Mm-hmm.
And they had someone come over from Crytek. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Benoit, actually. No, it wasn't. This was way after. Because
the Crytek, the CryEngine evangelist, the evangelist of Crytek was
they had lots of people come. I mean, there was a specific developer in mid-development. Like we're talking about, like we're already well on development. He'd just come over and joined CIG Frankfurt, and he said, "I think I can give you Planet Tech demos based on something I've been working on." And this is where the genius part happened. Brian Chambers said, "Right, drop everything you're doing, spend 2 weeks just working on that, and show us what you've got." And that's where Planet Tech version 1 came from. Mm-hmm. Was that agility of them dropping other priorities and seeing that. And I think that is like that's what's made Star Citizen a game which is so far ahead of like everything else for that.
But I think other things that help that, Paul is struggling. It's getting close, guys. But we're still only at 4,600, so let's see if we can push it to 400.
We'll get to 5,000.
He's not legally allowed to go to sleep unless he hits 5,000. I don't know if you guys knew this.
But I think that the idea of that large maps was probably the first big thing that enabled that. Once they went from that small, 6K kilometer square type map to being able to do everywhere on the planet. And I think that's part of that Planet Tech. But that opened up, once they could do the large maps, that opened up the ability to do Planet Tech and do everything else. And that's just...
Well, everything else changed around it. We went from a game which was focused in space and terrestrial POIs to a game which now had to accommodate it, like a phenomenally larger game space and populate it with content. So everything changed past that point. And I think that Chris Roberts was wrong in thinking about something that he could shoehorn in later. because you still have to have this game which works and then add that on later. No, it needs to be part of the whole thing.
And I know that's one of the things Chris has always said. You know, we build the tool, we build the framework or the foundation first, and then we'll put all the other stuff in. So it was something he wanted to have in, so he needed to have that framework there. And I think that was the idea of going to the large maps, so that they could do that expansion of the things they wanted. But early on, we know that planets were only ever supposed to have 1 or 2 landing zones.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to, you know, Hurston would have been our landing zone or Lorville would have been our landing zone for Hurston. We were never supposed to be able to go anywhere on the planet. You'd have maybe had that and maybe a couple of outposts. The moons would have probably only had 1 or 2 outposts, but we can go anywhere. And that is what really, that changed when we got the large maps and we got Planet Tech. And it just, I think, blew the possibilities for Star Citizen out of the water.
I have another conspiracy theory that I've been thinking is that a lot of the stuff that we were getting at the end of 2.0, like before 3.0 hit, was content which was kind of like, or building content. Actually, not 2.0. It was right before 3.4 hit, right before the server, not the server machine, the OCS hit. We had content that was building. We had moons that we could land on. Actually, you know what? I'll go back. I think it was 2.7. It was the end of 3.0. We had a lot of content in those coming up that was just now starting to come back. Things like reputation, things like mission givers, things like trading being improved, and like a lot of these ideas, like the pre 3.0 era, like right before the 3.0 era, felt a lot like what it feels like right now, where like there's serious progress moving forward. They're kind of working. So I think what happened was 3.0 hit because they did server the Planet Tech, and that basically said, all right, we have to redo everything for Planet Tech. Stop what you're doing. We're rebuilding everything from scratch, or as much as scratch as possible, which is slow down development, obviously. So now we're finally catching up to that point, which was, 4 or 5 years ago, where they were in that development cycle with what they've learned and moving forward. So, like, I think like a lot of what we saw with delays in Star Citizen have to do with Planet Tech. At the end of the day, it's more to do with Planet Tech coming into the game and improving the game overall, but still causing everything else to get caught up for it. But I think that's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that's a good perspective.
Yeah.
And I know early on, I can remember 2014, 2015, there was discussion over whether Star Citizen's development approach was right compared to Elite, because Elite had got out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember Chris saying, yeah, look, we could have used either option. He said both are valid. We can either do our groundwork and do all of our background stuff to the things we want in and build for those, or we can build our base game and then add the other bits in or shoehorn them in. And at the time, it looked like, looking back, it looked like Elite had got the right thing. They got their game out. It was running. It was functioning. It was doing great. When Star Citizen seemed to be still working on building the base foundations. I think at that point we were just into the world. And but then, as we've seen with the latest one, the Odyssey upgrade for Elite, the impression is that almost killed Elite. It didn't meet up to the expectations of everything it said, and I think part of that was trying to shoehorn that thing, that build into what they had. Whereas Star Citizen, because of the way they took it, it's a different process. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just
yeah. I mean, people are going to look to Star Citizen for its development history for lessons on how to do some things, but it's also going to look for how not to do some things. And that, if they were starting again now, knowing what they know, it would not be developed in the same exact manner as it has been. But that's just the nature of any larger project, and also a nature something which is hidden from us for so many other developments. I mean, I think one of the largest things I noticed was when they actually professionalized project management across the thing. It was only a couple of years ago they actually started hiring project managers that are embedded in every team, and they are experts in project management, which often gets disregarded as a soft skill that everybody should have, but is actually a skill which in a project this size needs to be its own professionalized expert function across everything.
Yeah,
you can't just rely on team leads to know project management and respect the tenets that are required of project management as much as they do their actual area of expertise.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try to answer this next question as best I can. Moodcat asks, I've got a JRDF arrow on deck to put together. I don't know. I don't usually dabble in minis. What paint should I grab? Here's my suggestion for any kind of mini things. If you don't really paint minis, usually Army Painter or Vallejo.
Vallejo. Yeah.
One of those two will have a nice paint kit. Find a good paint kit that starts with like 20 solid colors, all of your base colors plus some metallics. Get that and get some paints, get some brushes, and then just use those, and then just kind of go from there. That's a good start. If you want to learn about how to do shading and dry brushing and all that kind of stuff, there's lots of tutorials on YouTube for that. Just get but getting just started with some paint kits, a set of brushes, which usually is like a detail brush, a medium brush, a small dry brush, those sorts of things. That's all you really need. So
I would suggest inking it first. So get an ink, get a painting ink, whatever color, and go over your model in that rather than. I've recently found the use of inks on metal figures, and I used to undercoat just to get the shine of the metal figure off, or to bring out the detail. And one of my mates was saying, look, I've been using inks, and I recently just did a series of figures in ink, and the amount of detail it brought up on the figure was amazing. The ink got into all the crevices, so it shows up. But the beauty of using an ink on the figures is that it gets rid of the sheen, so you can see things better. But B, when you undercoat, you're filling in a lot of the detail with paint, even if it's a light layer. Whereas the ink doesn't do that, and so when you put your first layer of paint on, it fills in those layers, and it just really brings out the figure a lot more. And I would imagine for any figure, whether it's a ship, 25 mil, 15 mil, whatever, that's going to make the thing. And so there's some ink. It's just, and you can get the inks in different colors. You can get them, I know from the Games Workshop brands, you can get the blacks, you can get
they're called
chestnutty colors.
Yeah, wide range.
Yeah.
And so you can get different colored inks to suit what you're after.
They're called washes sometimes. They're called inks.
Yep.
They're called shades. They're different names, but they're all the same.
I'm also told that if you get a paint and then use a mix of believe it or not, detergent, that
can help
give you an ink. But I have not tried that, and I'm not going to say I know how to do that. But I am told that that's a cheap way of getting inks to work as well.
Yeah. I would also recommend do not be afraid of layering. If you're going up for a dark color, go from your black and up. If you're going up from your bright colors, go from a white and down. It makes a hell of a difference. If you see a yellow on a black versus a yellow on a white, the yellow on the white looks a lot better. So,
so tune in here for figure painting.
Well, I was doing that before CitizenCon. I was painting that cutlass. So
right. I've been doing blood and plunder figures, so piracy and 17th century, 16th century, that type of piracy, sailing ships and whatnot. So
that's my job IRL. I'm a manager of a game store that does like miniatures and role-playing games and stuff. Yeah.
Dream job.
So you're plastic.
Doesn't pay much, I'm sure, but dream job.
No, it pays all right. We live in Australia. We got good pay.
Yeah.
True.
So you're a plastic crack and magic card pusher, is what you're trying to say.
Oh yes. I try to push them more into D&D, but I try.
Everyone chats like you need to get some sleep, man. It's like I got an hour and a half left, y'all. I'll do this. I'll get through this.
We still need
$5,400.
$400.
$400. We're $400 away. Yeah.
No, $5,400 because that's an extra 16 hours.
Oh no! Thank God, no. Algrid wants to kill
We haven't even
me.
started talking about 3.15's PTU
That's right. We haven't even
yet.
got the 315
Oh
yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me look at the next question, because that's actually another next question.
Sure.
I'll go on that one. 315 is a pretty big gameplay, where 16 feels like more of a tech patch with initial implementation for both Quanta and Gen 12 and more iCache. What are your expectations for 16, and where do you think we will performance-wise at the end of the year? So let's talk a little bit about 15, and then kind of where we're seeing 16. Croncy. You played 315?
Yeah, we played for about 7 or 8 hours yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so your initial thoughts, and then we'll move on from there.
So 315 is a complete game changer. It is enjoyable to do everything. Given the servers were relatively stable, at least for us last night, but it's proper addictive now to like actually play. Whereas previously I was just like, I'm going to mine for 7 hours through sheer force of will. Now I actively want to go do as many missions as I want. As I can rather. The medical gameplay, I did not expect it to be implemented this well. I thought it would have been like this is supposed to be tier 0 medical. It does not feel like tier 0. It feels like it is basically done, which is awesome because now I know that means there's going to be a ton more coming later, right? Yeah, very excited. Still tons of stuff for us to look at though. It's only been live for 36 hours or so. So
yeah,
I found something in. I've only played maybe half an hour, and mostly focusing on one particular area. It's currently, I think, the 5th most upvoted thing on the subreddit for the last 24 hours is finding you can deliberately overdose your character in any hospital drunk effect, which also means that you can now hold. I mean, I was doing it so that you'd get the overdose effect after a minute. So after a minute, you'd stagger out and you go plonk. But you can. You give yourself plenty of that anti-overdose medication, you still get the drunk effect. So now we can have deliberate drunk races, which is just emergent gameplay at its highest. You know?
My question is the old drink cabinet going to work again?
Oh, please.
I gotta fix that camera. I don't know why it's doing that.
Sorry, my wife has just joined her actual work meeting, so now our internet has gone.
Your internet has tanked.
I'm a concept ship coming.
He's only in grey. He's only in grey box.
Grey box.
There we go.
He's in white box.
Thank you, Vodafone Internet.
I will say I know some people are upset at 315 right now. I know there's some people in chat. It's like I didn't have a good time, and I saw more than a few people in chat kind of popping in the last 24 hours who were like, I hated it. I hate this. I hate this changes. I've played this game since the first time I could play it in like 2014. This is the first time I just put it down and said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I hate to say this, but y'all, it's a PTU. Like, is the problem that the gameplay sucks, or is the problem that you don't like the bugs? Because bugs are going to happen in a PTU. It's just one of those things that happens.
And I think people need to remember, like, even when the game goes live, even when it's live, even when it's in a live server, we are still in PTU. It's just PTU live, not PTU test, Yeah. And people keep thinking when it's live, it's the game out there. No, it's PTU. It's still the test universe. It's still alpha, So get used to it. If you expect it to be perfect, you're a dreamer and an idiot. And I'm sorry if you don't like that, but you are. And it may not be the way you want, but that's the way it is at the moment.
You're not obliged to like it as well. Like, I don't actually enjoy playing in the PTU. I don't enjoy, like, we got the new inventory system. I can see that it's going to work, but at the moment, it's a real chore to use. And there's some aspects which are unintuitive about the UI. And I've already lost all my equipment because I loaded it into a ship and then the ship despawned, and now I only have like a single pistol. But I don't feel like
you can get a gown.
I don't feel obliged to enjoy that, and I don't feel that like me enjoying that is the output they need right now. I like seeing the content, and I'll enjoy it when it's done. That's fine. That's a perfectly reasonable way to enjoy the project.
I will say with a lot of the people that are concerned that like, oh, I'm going to 30k and lose all my stuff, or I'm going to die and lose all my stuff because I can't get rescued or anything. Genuinely, do not worry about that. Not just because of bugs, etc., but because it is so easy to loot stuff in this patch. If you have 30 minutes, you're fully geared. 30 minutes and a pistol, you're done. It's really, really good in that aspect.
And again, it's not permanent. It's a test universe. There are going to be reboots. There are going to be resets, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lose stuff. It's one of the things I didn't mind. Like I said earlier, in 3.14, I would, and up until now, I would have, without hesitation, someone wanted to loan a ship if I was there, and it was going up in my inventory. Yeah, I'd spawn, let them. Doesn't bother me. But if you stole my ship, I'd just go and reclaim it.
Speaking of loot, I heard a rumor which came from a data miner that the Xi'an rocket launcher,
it's in
Hicks. I haven't seen any screenshots of it yet, but I really want to. Because
I've seen some P8 AR ammo. I haven't seen the P8 AR yet. That's the other one.
And I've heard they're only available in loot boxes.
Yeah, you can only loot it, and I'm excited to see if they've updated the decals on the side. Which the old models they had, the ammo said, I think it said like goodbye on the front, and then like left and right on the fins. But then the gun itself just had like 04 written in Xi'an numerals, and I'm excited to see if they've maybe even like got a. It's by a manufacturer called Toral Aggregate, who also make the guns on the Sandokyai. And I'm interested to see if they've actually made a logo for them now and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
There's also, weirdly enough, I don't know why they're in the files, but there's a bunch of placeholder items that tell you what they are. Like the you can pick up the rifle-sized tractor beam and the rifle-sized cutter, I think it is. They don't do anything, but they're in the files.
Yeah.
You get them if you get them and store them and don't lose them. Who knows? You might be able to use them when it becomes available or workable.
So what was the other half of the question, Paul?
So the other half of the question is, when what are your expectations for 3.16? Based off of what we know that it's going to be much more of a tech heavy patch, Quanta, Gen 12, iCache.
Well, there'll definitely be features that'll still be added. It's still a couple months away. They tend to add 1 or 2 features to the announcements. At the same time, they're often removing some too. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we're getting some cargo refactor in 3.16 as well. Probably not the whole thing, but yeah. So that is technically a gameplay thing. I am disappointed hacking got removed from it though. That got pushed back.
If I was thinking about the usual routine, where we get a massive drop and then the next few patches are kind of fine-tuning and polishing and getting rid of the bugs in those, I would expect the next couple to be light in terms of content, because they're actually doing the fine-tuning or balancing or doing whatever they do in between those patches, and then the next big patch, then we'll get another big patch, and eventually by 4.0, that's where we'll get our jump points, I imagine, and the station. So
I've begun to think of them as upstream and downstream patches. What we're getting in 3.15 is a downstream patch. It's all of the tech teams with all of their tools, building tools and content for us. And then the 3.16 is going to be an upstream patch where all of the original tech that they need to build are going to be putting into 3.16. So I expect 3.17 to be another downstream patch where they're going to have more stuff that's like, because that tech's in there, can now insert more things. It means 3.18 is going to be more an upstream patch, and like it's going to be that roller coaster. And sometimes you can have upstream or downstream, but especially with the 3.15, 3.16, it's like pretty obvious you have that lower content, higher tech, higher tools being implemented, versus 3.15, which is less tools and more content. So,
I mean, we can probably expect there to be some hidden ships as well, because there were, IAEs coming up.
Oh yeah,
and there's probably, we've seen hints of the refinery, we've seen leaks of the raft. like there's probably going to be some content there that just hasn't been announced yet because it'll be announced at IAE. I don't know. Speaking of IAE, is IAE going to be at Microtech again, or do you think they're going to use Orison? Maybe, yeah, but do you think they're going to be using like the Crusader showroom, which is new in this patch? I mean, it's got space, but it hasn't got as much space as the conference halls that we've seen of past.
No,
I thought it was confirmed that it was Microtech.
No, it's Orison, and they have a brand new location on Orison that's going to be a brand new platform, which is
conference center.
Oh, okay, so it's going to be a whole other thing.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
I think it's actually named after the current CEO of Crusader Industries. What's her name?
Kaplan?
Yeah, Kaplan. It's called the Kaplan, something like that. It's like the Kaplan.
That platform is in game. You just it doesn't have anything. Yeah,
there is a Kaplan industrial platform, and it'd be really interesting if they did use that. But that would be a very different, because you can already fly through every part of it, and there isn't really like a space, like a conference hall. But I suppose you could just do it on the deck. But
yeah,
they could have course have another platform named after her as well.
An open air one would be pretty cool.
What?
Like an open air IAE.
Yeah. But they have also I noticed this in the showroom area, which is new in Orison. There's a couple of other characters which are named, which don't have buildings named after them yet. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but like other major engineers from their history. So it's possible that they'd be named after that.
Yeah, it could be that as that. I remember something like that being mentioned or being data mined. So, what I expect is bugs. What I hope for in 3.16 is Gen 12 being implemented and the performance going way up, and Quanta being implemented, and now suddenly missions are a little bit better. And the overall kind of trade stuff is going to be improved a little bit. Not great. We're not going to talk about like massive improvements, but more goodness. More better.
So while the ability of the system to cope with extra stuff will improve, we won't necessarily see it because they'll actually put more stuff in to actually.
Yeah.
That might feel like it's the same, but there'll be so much background stuff going on with Quanta and everything else that it will be better. We just won't necessarily feel it's better.
Yeah. I got an hour and 15 minutes. All right, moving on. Why no updates on Theaters of War at CitizenCon? The basic answer is it's just not ready. It's just not ready.
It's like a wizard to take the Lord of the Rings. A wizard is never late.
I mean,
is never late.
Earlier, when I was saying what downsides of the whole thing, we were talking about how it's like there was less sizzle, more steak, and they're in that awkward phase where they've already told us everything that they are planning to do, essentially, and they haven't completed that yet. Yep. So all they can do is tell us it again, and that I think that goes for Theaters of War and Squadron 42 as well. Like, there's nothing more to say. And the things that they can show look as good as they did. There's just more of them that they could show. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be good to reveal that. I don't think that the Fire Sprite buyout by Sony is really relevant. Because, I mean, I've got a friend who worked for Playground Games, who got bought out by Microsoft. And that experience for them, and I think is probably similar to the experience with Fire Sprite, where they've just now got loads more resources, more money, more facilities around them, and it won't affect an existing contract that they have. So, if anything, the Sony buyout probably means that they might have some distraction, but it's not going to harm what Fire Sprite are doing on their contract with CIG.
I mean, my hopium for that is this is the CIG's inroads for the inevitable Squadron 42 port to Sony, to PlayStation. That
and even if Squadron doesn't go that line,
I know, but like every single Chris Roberts single player game has made it onto, well, every single Wing Commander game has made it onto a console.
And
every
even if
single Wing Commander game. So
even if Squadron doesn't go into that, there's certainly ground for Theaters of War, Arena Commander, and Star Marine to go into that platform. And it's not that Chris Roberts said this will never be.
Yeah.
The idea was Star Citizen Squadron 42 is primarily a PC game. Whereas what you had back in 2013, 2012, whenever, was you'd have console games being kind of prettied up a little bit and shoved into PC, and that was a PC game. Totally different from making a game purely for PC and then dumbing it down for console. So I've got no problem, and if it brings in more people enjoying Squadron, then I don't care. Put it on PS4, but just don't dumb it down for my PC.
Exactly.
Don't impact my PC.
I think people lose the perspective, as that when Chris Roberts launched Squadron 42 and Star Citizen's Kickstarter, it was in 2012. We were in the absolute peak of console mania, where every game was being made for console and then being ported to PC. And the number one gripe I had heard from most PC gamers was, I don't want to play a console port. I want to play a PC game. Why am I getting a game that usually comes out for PC and then goes to console? Why am I getting a console game that should be coming out to PC first? But now
what was the line? The rumors of my death have been highly exaggerated.
I don't think that concern is invalid, because I mean, like, one of the biggest game franchises over the last few years has been the Elder Scrolls, and the fact that the cities in Oblivion and Skyrim were in these encapsulated pocket universes that you could only access through a gate, where previously there'd been expansive in-world cities, was because that was something that was necessary for the consoles of the time, and that became part of the design. So even if you do a perfect port, that design has been built around it. Now, we're always going to be a PC game that gets ported to consoles. The only threat to us in terms of our enjoyment is if they are compromising the user interface to be appropriate for only having the controls of a controller, and finding some compromise. So essentially compromising between us playing on keyboard, mouse, joysticks, a full sim pit, so that someone with just a single controller can still play it. That could be a threat. That could be like a menu, which like the tabbed menus that we now get in PC games, because they're built for console games, are irritating. I have a mouse. I have a mouse and I must click. This is like I want it to be a full-blooded, optimized PC experience that hopefully can be ported.
And yet, even from the very beginning, if you look at, we've got options to use the controller. We've got options to use our mouse and keyboard. We've got options to use our joysticks. And so, even though it's a PC game, we've always had the options for a controller. And I know that's, one of the things that Chris Roberts seemed to prefer to use at one point was his controller. And certainly, I think when they used to do the dev show, the shows like CitizenCon, that's what they tended to use, because I think it was easier for them to plug it in and use and port, carry it around to different places. So I don't really see a problem with it, as long, but as Joe was saying, as long as it's not impacting the keyboard and mouse or our joystick control in the PC, then who cares? It brings more people in.
That's the problem, is they're probably going to have to develop two interfaces. Like the new inventory interface, that's not going to work on a controller the way it currently works now, where you got to click and drag. Click and drag isn't something you do on consoles. And but I just hope that they actually, if they're going to do that, they commit to developing two user interfaces rather than trying to compromise on one, because that's always going to end up bad for the PC side of things.
Let's move on. We've still got three questions, and I still have a little more than an hour left, about an hour and 7 minutes.
And we haven't advanced our counter for the last 30 minutes. So come on.
I think there's a lot of people who want to be the $5,000 person, like right at the end. We're all playing like Al with 100 million, 150 million, 200 million.
Sometimes when you want to get that mark, you just have to say, "I'm going a javelin."
There's still a lot of conversation about what I've been saying about controls. Yeah, you do get mouse cursor in certain games on console, and it sucks. And you do get like
it's a bad user experience.
Yeah, this is the problem. I think they need to develop a good user experience for both, because if they make it too console-like on PC and it's annoying, and if they make it too PC-like on console, it's annoying.
Now that's an interesting comment for the Elite game. Sorry, I cut you off, Joel. I was just reading the comment about Elite Dangerous, where they said started as a PC game, went to console, and they had to nerf the graphics on PC to make it look good on console. That's the type of thing I don't want to see happen.
Yeah.
So if I can't get it to console without dumbing down PC, then sod the consoles. But I think games like the enclosed capsulated games like Theatres of War, which are set map type things, at least originally, or Arena Commander or Star Marine, they work perfectly because they are just encapsulated little scenes.
I think even Squadron it works like that, because like the problem they would have something like that with Elite would be it has to be the graphics have to be the same, because you have crossplay between PCs and consoles. You don't have to have crossplay with Squadron. It's a single player game. So I mean, the answer is, and I know this is always a kind of a weird discussion when it comes to Star Citizen fans, but the answer is Star Citizen's going to be on or Squadron 42 at least is going to be on a console at some point. And Star Citizen's going to be sold on Steam. Those are two things that will happen. The question is when, not if, but when. And in some cases a little bit how, because my theory still stands that they're going to hire some outside studio. They're going to make a deal with Sony or Microsoft for exclusivity, as long as they just hand over their code and a couple of developers to a third-party studio who will then develop the port from the ground up. Take their stuff and they work from that, because that way CIG has minimal input. They have a couple of advisors who go check on them once a week or so on and so forth. A few like a couple times to make sure everything's good, play test it, move on, and then they kind of hands off. But I also don't expect that to happen until a year plus after Squad 40 releases on PC too. So,
and you also look at the consoles. Like, consoles today are so much better than they were 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and so consoles are only going to get better, just like PCs have only got better. I know my PC is 10 times better than it was 10 years ago, and that's 10 times, and the one I had then is 10 times better than it was in the 80s, just in terms of what it can do and the power. So
yeah. Just to let people know, wait, Paul, don't you have school today? It's a holiday. It's Columbus Day. I don't have to teach today. Stop.
That's why you can do another 16 hours.
No.
Is it also the first Indigenous Peoples Day, or is that
it's
officially?
It's officially the first Indigenous Peoples Day federally. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, by Biden signed that one. So, well, it's not really. It was. We actually have a training day today, but I just took the day off from my pool of days off. I took that day off because it's just like I knew this was going to happen. All right. Next question comes from BSNT, who asks, does the Liberator light carrier have rearm, refuel, or repair abilities for the attached ships and ground vehicles? I think we talked about this a little bit, maybe in another panel.
I think that they said there's refuel in the Q&A. Should check that. But I don't expect to have
answers to the Q&A yet, but they've said in the past that when they ask questions about the hangars or the flat tops on the Carrack, not the Carrack, the Kraken, it was said that like every place where you can land ships, they will work the same. So I can't imagine a flat top like that not being able to at least do rearm, refuel, repair. I certainly expect refuel, and I imagine there'll be different degrees of whether it can repair or rearm. And I don't even think the Kraken would offer the same like space station repair where drones come out and fix it up. I think it'll be more. If they're on the deck, it'll be more hand repair or hand reloading, and that's where you'll need your NPCs or you'll have people actually physically doing that job. So I think they'll have the capability to do that. I don't think it'll be like treading on the toes of, say, a Crucible, because a Crucible is for doing not only fighters but also larger ships and even capital ships. So, yeah, and I don't think it'll tread on the shoes of either a Vulcan either.
No,
I think you're right. That hand repair will definitely be the way it happens, and that's the same for just any plant you ship down. You know, get your crew of hand repair people out. That's fine. And I think refuel is, because we're talking about ship to ship refuel now anyway. Rearm. I mean, bearing in mind you've only got 400 SCU of cargo anyway, and all those things take resource. So I wouldn't be relying on it to replace like a Starfarer and a Crucible on those grounds. Just patch jobs, just like the tier 3 med bed on the Cutlass Red. It's just to keep you in the game, not get you back to full fighting health.
And even when you look at the Kraken, I keep calling it a Carrack, but even the Kraken, they said, yeah, it can repair, rearm, and refuel even on the flat top beds, because that's what you can do in landing pads. But the key thing they said was, it relies on how, you've got to have the resources on your ship. If you don't have the fuel, you can't do it. If you don't have the fuel in your fuel tanks, you can't give them fuel. If you don't have the ammo in your storage, you can't give them. If you don't have the repair stuff, you can't repair it. And I imagine that'll be exactly the same for the Liberator, for the 890, for the Carrack, for the Polaris. You name, any ship where you've got ships on where you want to repair, rearm, refuel, the same criteria is going to apply. And if you think it's otherwise, you're an idiot.
Yep. I was gonna say, I think a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's not going to be able to rearm or refuel. It's just carrying. It's like, it's not designed to, but there's a lot of stuff you can do in Star Citizen. The sits it fits rule, the cat rule, which is where if it sits it fits. If it fits it sits.
If it fits it sits.
Yeah.
Sits it fits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to get to a point where we can rearm our ships on foot anyway. Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking about like the Matrix Revolutions, where they're running around with like the carts of ammo and they're like shunting them into the back of the robots that are fighting.
Yeah.
Like, give me that.
I certainly think it'll be easier to rearm, repair, and refuel a ship on a Liberator than it will be to rearm, repair, and refuel a P-52 on a Connie.
Yes. Yes, and I also think that by the time we get to the Liberator being released, because it's 2 years away, a lot of this stuff will already be tackled, will already be in some sort of tier 1 state. There's no way this ship is coming out next year. So the Liberator is so far out there that you're playing Imagine, the video game, when you're talking about like, you're full into Chris Roberts' Imagine land with asking anything about the Liberator other than it can carry tanks and vehicles and ships, and it can be crewed by 3 people or 2 people. That's pretty much what you need to know right now, because all of that stuff could change.
Yeah,
it could change tomorrow. Yeah.
So seats for 16 Marines or whatever, place for tanks and ships, crew for 2. Extended fuel tanks, so it does have, fuel tanks that does have extra fuel. It's got 400 units of cargo. I think those bays are probably 100 that we see in the graphics, because you notice on the side of the landing pads there's also cargo stored.
I'm less than an hour now. Less than an hour.
4660 on the counter as well. So a little bit closer to 5,000.
Yep. $60 closer. And yes, Bar Citizens will be on again soon. Yes. We did have first day of freedom. Well, I wouldn't call it freedom. It was first day of reduced restrictions.
Lapsed restrictions.
Less restrictions. And I spent, I think it was about 4 hours today, sitting on the phone waiting while I was trying to get my online COVID license certificate kind of working, so that I can actually go to work and say, yes, I have been cleared. So yes, websites were down constantly.
I can imagine. You're getting hugged to death. Hikawa Dean asks, how tired are you, Paul? I've been more tired in the past, but I will say the hard part about 24 hours is that the last couple of hours you're always really tired, and you can't do anything. You're just useless because you can't like play video games because your coordination is garbage. You can't really discuss much because your brain is mush, and you know you're just basically a giant blob of human that you just kind of have to survive for the last couple of hours, and then when you're done, you can sleep. What's the messed up part is, this is the messed up part. This stream's going to go off in about 55 minutes. I'm going to turn the stream off. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to go grab some water. I'm going to, as I'm, drinking some water, I'm going to watch like a YouTube video, and then my brain's going to be like, cool, it's morning. Don't go to sleep. It's like, you were just telling me to sleep 5 minutes ago, and now brain's like, no, you're awake now. Enjoy.
And then about 5 hours later or 4 hours later, you're going to be
just
yeah,
again. So
that's your super chiasmatic nucleus at work. It is a bitch. You can reset it. We have found one drug that resets it, but unfortunately it's Viagra. So yeah.
Okay. My brain, I know enough about her in terms of the doing 24 hours enough, doing these kind of streams enough to know that I don't want to do these often because I know how it works, but I've tricked it enough so that I can get it so that I go to bed after this, and I'll sleep for like 8 hours and I'll feel fine, and that'll be like getting up at 1 p.m. so it'll be like a lazy Sunday. Yeah. All right. Let's go on. Okay. Jock Cop, Liberator loaded with Argo cargoes. Game breakingly OP? Question mark.
Depends what you're doing.
I mean, anything. It's the best ship in the game, the MPUVs.
If you have your Argo loaded up with infantry and with the life pod module attached, and you've got 6 of those launching off that Liberator and going to attack something, because it's a small ship which doesn't have quantum and is low on power and has a low signature, you might be able to stealth drop those troops in better than a Prowler could.
I mean, I'm thinking like Starship Troopers. You know, you take all of these people in, and you take one of those the Argo MPUV personnel carriers, and you just load them full of people. Get to a place, you take off the MPUV personnel carriers, and it's like the Klendathu drop in Starship Troopers. It just waves of these, hundreds of these ships coming off of the main mothership to go down and drop off the troops, and then getting picked off
and going back up, and
then going back up, and then down. Yeah. So that's I can see that. So, Croncy, you did the 24 hours recently?
Yeah, I do it too often, honestly.
Do you do the same thing where you get started in the morning and then you end in the morning, or do you do it like you go to work, do it?
Yes, but not back? 6 a.m. Not 6 a.m. What I do is I do like a 10 a.m. Sort of for the similar reason that you said, that like right now you're probably about to like get this second wind that you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So I plan to have that in the stream, have the second win that I don't want in the stream.
So that when you're end of your second stream, your second win, you go to sleep. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And in answer to the chat, yes, I'm aware that the MPBU chest question was not serious, but every question is a serious answer, because you never know. As a teacher, you never know when those questions. There's always someone who actually really wants to know the answer.
There's always a learning experience. I always teach every question is a serious question. You'd be surprised how many students go, "Oh, I didn't know that." I've had more than a couple
Teaching
students.
101.
Yeah, I've had more than a couple students go ask questions that are like, "Hey, I'm gonna get him. Gonna make a naughty question." It's like, okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's go into depth about that. And they go, "Wait, what? We were just joking."
You're going to do this. This is not PE. This is not this. It's yeah. You ask the question, we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh. And then you'll get kids who go, wow. So, yep.
I also have a request, chat. Can we stop calling the Argo MPUV the Argo? I I stan an Argo mole, and I am it sits in the corner, and it's real sad when everyone's like, "Yay, Argo!" and it has no friends to play with.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys, can we please let's get the whole model in there.
Okay.
Cries in Argo SRP.
Yes. There's literally a lore reason for it. There's literally a lore reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's actually in lore that people call the MPUV the Argo.
Yep.
Wow.
It is like Victor. It's like a Victor lawnmower. Everyone calls a lawnmower. Used to call a lawnmower Victor. Didn't matter whether it was a Honda or whatever. It was a Victor because that was the brand.
That's an Australian.
Like Whirlpool washing machine or dryer.
It's a tragedy. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's like a Hills hoist.
Well, the whole story behind it is basically that it's the first ship they ever built, and because it's the first ship they ever built, people just assume that they just call it the Argo, and then it just stuck. And then Argo built other things, but they still just said, "Oh yeah, it's an Argo," you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like Hoover in the UK. That's one for us.
Yeah, Hoover in the UK, Hills hoist in Australia for clotheslines.
Coke
doesn't matter if your clothesline is something else. People still refer to it as a Hills hoist.
As a Hills hoist, yeah.
Yeah, a Coke in America. No matter what soft drink it is, it's always a Coke.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah. Brand names, baby. You would you like a Coke? Yeah, I'll get a Pepsi, you know.
I guess it's slightly different because we're talking about genericized branding where everyone's small cargo ship might be called Argo, but it's really like their entire brand is defined by this like one iconic product, and then all their other products are being ignored. And I guess you do see that in like certain things. I'm trying to think of some examples, but you certainly get like, oh, pass me the one we have in the lab is the Gilson, which is have you ever seen the side thing where they have like the little thing for dispensing liquids, and we call that a Gilson. Gilson make loads of products, but the Gilson pipette is the Gilson. Yeah.
It's like someone said in chat, the Pyro.
Yes.
You don't ask you're often Pyro.
Yeah, I suppose that again we're kind of thinking about like how other people's brands get ignored, whereas we're talking about the same brand's products getting ignored.
Yeah, that's true.
The important thing to take away is stop ignoring them all. That's all I'm saying.
But even with Pyro, you ask for Pyro, you're generally asking for a black or blue. You're not asking for a red or a green or a purple, and yet.
Here's a question for everyone though: what do you think RAFT stands for the Argo Raft? RAFT. Mine is Rapid Attach Freight Transport. That's what
I like that.
Really angry turtle, or really angry, frustrated turtle. Raft. Bingo.
Yeah.
I have no idea. What it sounds like.
And fuel transport.
I'm under the impression it's not a refinery. I'm getting the feeling of it now, especially with we're getting the MISC finery most likely.
Well, here's the wrench to throw into all of this conversation, which is this could be the wrong manufacturer, but the thing that Sear has been talking about forever, which is a smaller Starfarer, a fuel transport. It's designed to be a fuel and refuel transport. That's not the size of a Starfarer, but smaller, like more like a Connie or smaller in size. That's just designed to do that because he's been up in arms. Sear's been up in arms about it being that's going to be a thing, and it's going to be a Crusader ship, and this could happen. It could be a refining like a fuel refining ship that's also a refueling ship. So,
well, if it is a MISC ship and it is a fuel ship, could that be the variant of the the popular player ship? It's a variant of a Starfarer. It's just been gutted and shrunk and doesn't have the rabbit warren of corridors in it.
I think from leaks we can be pretty confident it's going to be Argo. But it looks like it's more transport than refinery, personally. But
I agree. Either way, cool. That's very cool. It's excited. Always excited.
I like my industrial boys. That's always fun.
Yeah,
I was like, we need more industrial ships.
Argo.
We need more
well.
utility. We need more utility and industrial ships. Those are the two things that we need to see more of. We need to be spoiled for choice from mining, refining, salvage, refueling.
Medium science.
Science.
I've got to admit, for me, ships like the mining ships and the Beholds and the Endeavours, the non-pew pew ships, they were the ships that actually sucked me into Star Citizen, because to me that said, this is not just a pew pew game. This is a game that's going to cover everything. So bring them on. Bring them on.
All right, I got a couple more questions. Go ahead.
I was going to say, remember to put question in the thing, see if you, otherwise it might get lost.
Yeah.
Because Paul's getting tired.
Yeah. So there's two questions here. Liquid Wayne and Kanoko basically kind of ask the same thing. Liquid Wayne asks, if the Banu merchantman is being compared to the 890 jump now, will the BMM hangar feature a Sadaball court, just like how the 890 jump features a basketball court?
Ooh, that would be cool.
Yeah. And then
I hadn't heard the BMM being compared to an 890, apart from where we think the price will go.
If you look at the side by side, Execute showed me the picture, but if you look at it side by side and you look at its features, it's an 890. It's an Alien 890.
So the size of it is now the 890. Okay,
it's about the same. It's slightly smaller than an 890, just barely a little bit, and it's mostly the reason why it's big is because of its wings. If you took the wings off, it would be like a 2/3 scale model of the 890, even in its kind of design language. So
that even more kind of pushes it to that 890 pricing.
Yeah,
I think it's more dense than the 890. Like it's laid out in a way that's got far more space being used for stuff rather than dressing. So,
well, it's certainly got the consumer area and the and the private crew areas, and I like the idea of that, because that kind of gives that idea of this is the family ship. This is where we live and this is where we work, and so I like that idea.
There was a related question that went in the chat about, does it look like they are going with the initial blockade runner idea?
Those
are
things to say.
Yeah, I think that, like I was saying earlier, like, is the BMM also their main military ship? I'm still unconvinced about that entirely, but like I think it certainly is keeping to that idea of. There was a comment in a jump point about it being a hulking freighter, and I think it is certainly a little bit more survivable and fighty than comparable hulking freighters.
It's certainly, whether it was and calling it the military ship is not quite there, because it was their ship had just used. It was just, I always saw it as when they came together as their militia. What do you bring? You bring your big ship, and that's their big ship. It's just hulking. It's got lots of guns. It's hard
the thing
to
is
kill.
that Banu culture has mercenary Su'ulis, so that means people whose entire life and their entire function in the thing will be having the guns that other people hire. And if it's a generalist ship, it wouldn't really fit that kind of mercenary thing. They would probably, they might just be using human ships at that point.
But that idea of it being the military ship goes back, predates when they came out with a different idea of Su'ulis. That was just back in the idea when this is the family ship, but the families all group together when they need to and form a militia. In that idea, what do you use? You've got your big ship that you're going around hauling stuff in, and you work in a family, and now we've got problems, so we all band together and we come at you with these great big ships with these massive big guns and everything else, and we blast through your blockade or do whatever. But now that we've got the
go ahead.
Go on, Paul. We've got the Su'ulis that do mercenary shipbuilding, and so we're almost Xeon light, because the Xeon have their planets that do that. Su'uli have their and the Banu do their ships and their factions that do that. So
I think we're beyond. It's no longer the blockade runner. It's definitely, I can almost still see it as a mercenary Su'uli, because the Banu merchantman is essentially like a Su'uli headquarters, because Su'ulis can be tiny, they can be huge, but like a Banu Merchantman is kind of like the ideal Suli headquarters in many ways. It feels like, and if you're a mercenary Suli, having a bespoke defender cargo or a hangar bay is kind of almost the point. I could see that as being like a this is our base. This is where we come in, we land, and we do those sorts of things. But I don't know. I think the Banu Merchantman, and I think JJ is in chat being like, why are you dissing my 890? It's like with the Banu Merchantman. The Banu Merchantman has a medical bay now. We've seen in concept.
Yeah.
It has a vehicle bay that can hold a defender. It has it's big. It's got big guns. It's got bigger guns than the 890. It's a more focused 890. Whereas 890 is kind of there for big parties. This is for messing things up and getting to where you need to go. But
if you look at the two forward cannons on the BMM,
size 8,
they to me look like gimbaled size 8. So
yeah, it's double size 8.
Are they going to be bespoke gimbaled size 8 so you can't change them, or is it going to be I can put fixed size 9s on there?
Do we really think it's going to be a bespoke defender hangar? Well, no, I don't think it's going to be bespoke. I think it's going to be bespoke in the sense that it's not designed for anything else other than defender. But this is Star Citizen we're talking about. Someone will find a way of putting whatever they want in that.
Yeah, it's a pad, not like a docking cup kind of arrangement. And if I could just respond to Lil Drift Boy's comment about manufacturers, I was like the most excited when we got like new Xi'an manufacturers, and there's definitely still space that it could carve out even more Xi'an manufacturers. But like Banu work on the Kalashnikov principle of like every there is no intellectual property rights. The reason everyone makes the same merchantman because it's already the best, and like they might customize them a bit, but all these Sulis are all making merchantmen independently, and there isn't another manufacturer out there. It's all Banu, and that's like how the Kalashnikov was made. The designs were made so public that like anybody could set up a Kalashnikov factory and make the same gun, and that was fine. So we won't see another Banu designer at all, unfortunately. But it would be cool if we actually got some variation on the existing ones, I suppose. Like, you know, here's a Mia style and a Bacchus style merchantman, and they have slightly different colors or something.
I suppose it depends on who, you know, if they find something, if one group of Banu come across something that they think is better, they might start making it. But yeah. And yes, I did see the comment that someone put in chat, and I think, yes, I should have remembered those guns are tuckaways, which probably does limit the ability to put size 9s in, because the size 9s probably will not fit. So that probably answers that question. So even if you could swap them out, you probably don't want to, and they will probably be gimbal.
I was actually surprised that it got a landing pad for the Defender. I was anticipating a more Constellation P-52.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was anticipating something more along that line as well, where it kind of dock in, and because they always talked about a symbiotic relationship between the two, and a docking pad is not really symbiotic. It's carrier thing, whereas symbiosis seems to get that idea of locked in and then sharing resources type idea. So, yeah, it would have been interesting to see that, but I can also see. I know in one discussion we were having on Infrarunners about the BMM, and I said, look, I could see them just doing a landing pad or a landing bay, because it's the easiest to do. You don't have to worry about locking things in. It's just open it up, put it in, and then anything that can fit in there can land in there. Whereas if I do a bespoke landing thing, then nothing else can go.
Responding to some other comments about the Banu lore, the idea of it being a generation ship, I think we need to stop saying, because Banu don't live generationally; they sell their children now, so that kind of must be outdated. And Mia is a Banu planet that has. It's a very nice place to visit, apparently.
It's important to keep into context as well with the Banu is that Sulis are very different from what you think. It's really hard for me. It took me a while to grasp what they are. A Suli is a family, but it's also a business, and they dissolve all the time. Like a child Banu will get sold into a Suli. They'll be bought by a Suli to work as a member of the Suli until they either work off their debt to that Suli, what they're valued at, or that Suli dissolves. When that Suli dissolves because the leader dies, because Sulis are only built around their leaders. So when that leader's gone, new Sulis form. Sometimes members of that Suli reform to a new Suli. Sometimes other ones leave. A great example of this is if you read the Belligerent Duck stories. Maz, or what's his name? I think it's Maz.
Yeah,
Maz. Mazhulan, I think is Mazhulan. He was a hacker. He was part of a hacking Suli, like a programming Suli. And when his Suli leader died, one of the members of his Suli took over for the leader. It became the Esso Suli, and he left because he didn't have any more ties. That he owed his allegiance to that Esso Suli. The Esso Suli's dead. He's out. So that's kind of like those sort of things happen all the time. So when we're talking about like ships and things, like because Banu live such short lives and because they're so not really connected in generational, like I think the average lifespan of a Banu is like 40 years. So you're talking about a society that's built on rapid change, constantly changing. So the idea of anything being like
institutionalized
or institutionalized is just, it's a foreign concept to them. It's like, get that paper, secure the bag, move forward. That is their culture. Is secure the bag, be unique, do what you do well, go on. So
there's no sense of delayed gratification.
Yeah. I think that the word family does apply, but it's a family based with no genetic blood ties. It's a family of contractual ties and like mutual support and obligation. And we have similar discussions of what it means to be family in the Xi'an thing, where you have your lineage, which is your genetic lineage, and that is also essentially the country you belong to. And then you have the Pia Hai within that, which is your chosen family, and are almost implied now to be like polyamorous, which is kind of, it's become a bit like Drummer's faction in The Expanse.
Yeah.
And to answer the question in chat, Suli is spelled, it's spelled with 3 Banu characters, which are Su-U-Li, and it is actually pronounced Su-Uli, with a break between the U and the U. And it's spelled in standard Romanized Banu as S-O-U-L-I.
Oh, yeah. So
Uli.
You've got the breakdown of Banu culture. The only other thing you need to know about Banu culture there, Crunchy, is don't sign contracts. Don't ever agree to a contract with a Banu. Never sign a contract.
Banu were just fair.
Basically.
No, Banu Ferengi.
Yeah.
I finally understand that joke. Don't get mad at me, chat. Everyone was getting mad at me for not watching Star Trek ever. I'm young, all right? I never watched Star Trek. We finally started watching TNG. We're like halfway through season 3. I finally understand stuff now.
Yeah. They're not bad. You can't get mad at a Banu. Banu are fucking wonderful. They're like the puppy dogs of the universe. But like the puppy dogs in the universe, they'll bite you. They like if you're not paying attention, they will whoop you upside and downside. But I can never get myself to look at a Banu and go, this is horrible. You literally push people into slavery, because it's just like Banu always, the way that they write Banu is like they're always upbeat and positive. No matter what's going on, it's like everything is positive. Like I got to look on the bright side of life, you know. It's just the way things are.
Can't wait to sell my child.
Yeah, it's not even that.
It's not really they're selling a child. They're actually, their child is being indentured or put into an apprenticeship.
It's their right to be sold. You know,
It's their right.
It's a
You know,
Banu right
I've
to
got them
be.
into this. I've got them into this awesome Suli. They're going to.
Yeah.
They're going to succeed. It's not.
It's
a different idea. It's not necessarily selling them to slavery. It's actually getting them into an apprenticeship. That's really good. But
I mean, it's essentially a parody of the capitalism that we see in the UEE as well, because they basically look at what happens to people on Hearthstone and go, well, that's just slavery with more steps. You know, that's You're not fulfilling your obligations to these people who are enslaved to you. Like we have these obligations that we fulfill. One of my favorite things about Banu culture, though, is how if you have a disagreement with them, all their phrases for like "I'm sorry" is "I'm sorry you found that offensive," and all those kind of like horrible, like they only speak in those terms. It's really nasty.
Oh yeah, they're super selfish, but it's like there's some aspects of their culture where they so value the skill of doing something that they don't root for teams. Like they drive humans crazy because in Sadaball tournaments, like the Banu will literally just cheer for both teams. Anytime someone does something goes good, they're just like, yes! And humans are like, why do you hate my team? Like, so they actually have special Banu seating for the Banu. So when they're cheering for both sides because they recognize the skill in something, how good how good players can be. And it's not about who wins and loses. It's about being really good at what you do. And
it would be like the way we appreciate sport would be like us going to an orchestra and getting really excited when the strings section has a good bit and not when the brass section has a good bit. That just doesn't, you're taking it as a whole.
Yeah.
Do the Banu have like I assume it's probably been built in the lore by now. Do the Banu have like a relatively like in-depth industry, or do they just trade for everything?
They have industry. They do a lot of manufacture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So carrying on with that then, Banu mining ship when?
I mean, we'd love to see him. I don't know if we'll see it. Ironically, if we saw a Banu mining ship, I think we would see a Banu mining, salvage, repair, refuel ship. It'd probably be all in one. That's the kind of thing the Banu like to do.
But that ties in with what Giles was saying earlier about, when he was looking at the lore or the language drop, all the Banu mining terms and everything that came up. So will we see a Banu mining station somewhere in Nyx or the horrible place, Pyro?
The horrible place.
I mean,
Pyro place, the horrible place.
They've also given themselves the out of saying, oh yeah, they used to have their own mining ships, but then the Argo Mole came along and they recognized it was better, so they just got rid of it and they started just making their own Argo Moles. So you just need like an Argo Mole where they've replaced it with Embe Banu, and that's like there you go, Banu mining ship.
Yeah.
I do like it though, because they've obviously shown with Gatak, they've shown that they're not afraid of going a bit more in depth into alien like alien player ships, right? Yeah. Actually seeing stuff that isn't just either combat or the BMM. Like it's those two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Banu are fascinating to me because they are so alien. They are so very alien. Like they're like the Xi'an, at least you can see some like human culture elements like in there, and Tavarin have similar kind of like you can see elements of things like Spartan, ideals or Roman, military concept. Like these, there's some like human analog for the Banu. Is not really a lot that I know of that are similar to this. They just kind of took a bunch of things and they just kept throwing it at it, and they kept throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing, and then eventually they have this layer of like I don't know where it began, but it's now something completely new.
And they don't keep their history, so finding their history is going to be a challenge as well. So they don't keep records. So
why do you keep records? Right, past is bad, new good. New is always better, baby. Let's just keep going. The future is that way.
I think there was like a watershed moment where all of the alien lore up to a certain point is quite generic.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it gets far more original. And that includes the Xi'an stuff. That there's like a lot of quite generic stuff early on. And then suddenly we got like, polyamorous families and people who meditate for 100 years and like all this other stuff. And I think that's the point where the people who are in the more senior leadership stop micromanaging the writers and let the writers write.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we've got like more original Banu and more original aspects of the Xi'an. And I'm glad for that. And yeah, you're right. The Tavaran are still stock tropes, but we haven't had that dump of like, okay, that was our draft. Here's the real one. Like, here's their language, here's their culture, here's what they eat.
How much do you think that is tied into the development of the languages? Because we seem to get that with the Xi'an when they really worked on the Xi'an language. And that kind of forced them to go into making them look back at the lore and balance that out. And we seem to be getting that with the Banu as well. So how much do you think, being our language linguist?
They made the correct decision that when they were going to flesh out the species and the cultures, that's when they do the language as well. They don't try and do one than the other. They have to be interlinked. And that was the correct decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is when the fleshing out happens. And like there's also like a lot of retconning involved in that. Like Banu going from generational to selling their babies. You know, Xi'an going from just everything flowing from the emperor to having these lineages, these houses. So yeah, I think that is entirely tied in with the language in that respect.
Yeah. And
you
can understand
the question. I'm not sure. I was sorry. I was taking a seat of some coffee.
I think it just confirmed where I was kind of thinking. I think it'd be really great to see the Tavaran get that treatment, but because they're a conquered race and part of the UEE, it's kind of superfluous and needs at this present time. But I'd love to have Tavaran play a character.
Well, since then they've decided and pretty much announced that there are going to be Tavaran exclaves that are similar to Levski, where there are Tavaran that didn't live in the UEE and left, and kind of maybe they still went through the same thing of like destroying their culture with the Purge, but there are Tavaran that live outside the UEE, and that's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the lore that we're getting into the weeds with the lore, but it's helping me, keeping me up. So I'm okay with this.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here, Paul.
There's a lot of stuff that, and I'll tie this back into the games coming in right now. It's that a lot of this stuff is going to make it into the game sooner rather than later, and it's going to start mattering when it comes to reputation. And like, here's the thing with like the Banu. Having a good reputation with a Banu Suli could mean literally nothing, because you have no idea how long that Suli is going to exist. You know, depending on how well they do the Quanta, you could literally have Suli overturning every minute, every couple of minutes, every day. You could go do a bunch of missions for the Suli, get a bunch of good reputations with it. The next day, yes, the Suli's dead. You show up, they're like, "Who the hell are you?" Like, I'm here for Esso Suli, Bob, who? Oh, he's dead.
He's dead.
Like,
next.
Bye. Let's start all over again. Let's
don't
that
just
clock.
Start with one Suli. Work with. Don't just start with one Banu in the Suli. Build relationship with them all.
Yeah.
Can I use this platform to make one other comment about the Banu that is really important to me? They're called the Banu Protectorate, which doesn't make sense, because a protectorate, you usually have a master country and then like a protectorate country. That's not what they are. And people keep thinking that they're, well, I've seen a few people say they're a protectorate of the UE. They actually they made that a direct translation of the word for that organization in Banu, which means the place that is protected by the Banu, and the closest English word being protectorate. And I think that's cute.
Yes. The Banu Protectorate of the Banu.
Yeah.
The Banu.
Yeah. And the Protectorate Council are the closest thing they have to like a central government, which is just like old, retired Esso Suli. They've divested, they're rich, and they're just like running the central thing. It's like,
do they still have the monks?
It's the market management. It's the guys who are making sure everything's going well.
Do they still have the religious monks as the head of their government? Like the ones that just keep cloistered and they don't let them see Banu society, and then they're the ones who they advise to? Because there was there's the monks who were the part of who worship the two gods, the luck and
Sunder
fortune.
Number or something like that. I can't remember them being part of the government. That's entirely possible. There's certainly there's on the Xi'an side where a house would have 3 elders running the place. Yeah. The emperor has 3 people who are from the bureaucracy, the civil bureaucracy, the military bureaucracy, and the Litova religion. So it's like the Pope is advising the emperor.
Mm.
But I can't remember that being from the Banu side, but that might just be an oversight of mine.
I remember that like one of my 2 of my favorite things were like they have this group of cloistered monks who they always turn to for advice when it comes to making new laws. So whenever they do their big meetings of the protectorate, they always have them be the leaders, or like they have them be their main advisors, because they've just completely been removed from Banu society, so they're the most neutral of all of the groups.
Right. Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and then also there is no gender in Banu. They don't have gendered words. There's just gender is not a concept in a Banu society.
But it's not part of their biology at all. Like they are what we would. There isn't really a word for it because there isn't any animal that actually behaves exactly like this. With a sort of there's a word from botany that I now forget that would apply to essentially that they can elect to carry a child or like donate material to be carried. So they're still sexually reproducing, but they don't have a binary sex or gender at all. It just doesn't matter to them at all. It just doesn't apply to their situation.
Yeah, it just confused. It is like the concept is just confusing to them. It's like
my pronouns are Eno. You know, like
yeah, exactly.
And I think that's one of the things that make them, the Banu, so interesting is they are totally alien. They really do feel, when you start delving into them, they make everything seems outside the box. It's completely opposite of what we expect. Where you look at the Xi'an and you go, oh yeah, I can. And I wonder if part of it is just that shortness of life. But the Xi'an are so long, we die waiting for them to eat their breakfast type thing, because they just live so long, so it doesn't, Whereas a Banu, it's vacuum cleaner when they're eating,
My brain is going.
Ready, let's go.
My brain is going because I'm going to the other story that I really enjoy, which is of the Xi'an of is it Kurtual? No, Kurtual is the name of the what's the company that makes it?
Aopoa.
Aopoa.
Yeah.
House Poa. How they got, because so the Xi'an society is based around major families which control major industries, and then minor families might be allied to these major families, but they usually control supporting industries. So like there'll be a small family, like a minor family, that controls like all fabric production, like all like essentially like Xi'an, like cotton or wool production, and then that goes to a family that produces linen, and then that goes to a major family who produces clothes. So that major family is producing clothes, but they have these minor families who kind of like shoot like companies that kind of funnel all the resources to them. So Apoa was in the bid to become a major family to produce all of the light vehicles, like the fighter craft of the Xi'an Empire, and they won their bid by cheating, by being absolute horrible cheaters. And what they did was they basically painted the imperial crest onto their ship for the testing of the vessels. So like for the people who are going to win the bid, essentially, who's going to get the new title for building these light craft. And they didn't build the best light craft, but they painted the imperial symbol on the ship. And they on the bet that nobody wanted to shoot the ship that had the imperial symbol on it because the emperor was watching. So it worked out, and they won the bid. And then they ended up like reinventing how the Xi'an build ships entirely, like the whole like vertical structure with all like the multiple like the engines and how they move and the gimbals. That was all House Poa. Apoa. They are the ones who invented that. But I like the fact that basically they got there because of deception, because of guile, and then it should be like, okay, by the way, here's all this technology. We'll do this. We'll finish this. It's just like, yeah. So, which is why go ahead.
I was just saying, just to address some of the like the reproductive conversation we were talking about in there about the Banu, because there's some things going on which I want to address. We don't use the word hermaphrodite because that implies that there's simultaneously two things, and also as a term is a bit outdated in science. Well, it's not outdated in science, but it's become one of those things that in the real world has taken on unpleasant meaning that we don't want. So it doesn't apply to the Banu. There was some term from botany that meant like exactly what the Banu are, which is kind of like essentially a genderless point, and then they can like specify which equipment they need for the job, essentially. Yeah, but I do agree with you. The Alpoa lore about their logo and that's like, yeah, that's some. It shows the Xi'an approach to like. The battle is won by the time you got to the battlefield, because you've kind of already done all the sneaky stuff you need.
Yeah. And also, and I can't think of it. I think it was a POA who worked with Misk, because it's one of those things where it's like a POA and Misk worked together before either side knew that they were really doing something. And in my brain, it's always some Xi'an managed to get a hold of a whole series, and it was just like, this is so efficient. It's so beautiful. I want this. And so someone like just I'm imagining just like a Xi'an just appeared in the Misk offices somehow, and just being like, hey, here's some papers. Let's talk. By the way, you've already signed this. Congratulations. Here's your technology. Thank you for all your whole series plans. You know, this is completely above board.
It reminds me of one of the Star Trek movies when that which one? Where they went back and saved the whales, you know, and Scotty goes, you need, here's the plans for Velcro. here's the plans for plastic or such other, and
yeah. No, I just imagine the Banu or the Xi'an, like the POA already showing up, being like, we've already signed the contracts. You've already got all the things signed. Everything's good to go. We've already taken all of your plans for the whole sea, but don't worry. We've also left you plans for all of our engine technology.
And yet, even with that, Misk still made the ugliest ships in the verse. Like, come on. Jeez.
Yes, but they do also have probably one of the better ships in the verse, in the Endeavour.
There we go.
Oh, I'm so keen for the Endeavour. Oh, excited.
All right, so I got 15 minutes left. Let's go through some of these questions.
I mentioned the Endeavour, and I put a smile on your face.
Parker asks, is current thinking that CIG wants to unveil a working jump point to Pyro, or needs players to map it?
I don't think they've specified anything about that. But there is a rumor that we will likely get a jump point in between Orison and Microtech, likely as just a proof of concept. Like, hey guys, come test how jump points work. I believe in future though, eventually, as part of exploration, is that you will most likely be trying to find jump points and stuff like that.
So
jump points will be part of what we do.
I still think Hurston and the Hurston Microtech jump point is never going to come into the game, because it would cause more confusion than it's worth. I think it was in the files. It was in the files for testing, and then the leaks folks took a look at it and said, hey, this is exactly how they build this for release. And it's like, maybe because they did a limited release, or maybe it just doesn't work in terms of gameplay design. The way that they talked about it at CitizenCon is like this. I imagine it is going to be a main jump point will exist, and then there will be smaller sub tunnels that'll exist around the jump point that you have to scan to find, and they're moving targets. So you find it, you can get into it, and then you have to traverse the whole tunnel. You can go into the main tunnel, or you can go through the side tunnels. When you get through the side tunnels, you get in, you can pop out, and you pop out the side tunnels, which may not be exactly on the main hub. It may be in another location. But the main hub, you can always still go through the hub and go through the beginning and the exit. But it's the gate still will exist at Pyro. I think people are confused, like, wait, the gate's gone? It's like the gate's still there. The problem was that people kept thinking that the gate was man-made, that they built the gate and the gate was the thing that was creating the jump point. It's like, no, the jump point was already there. The gate was just infrastructure around it. It's like, think of the jump point as the river, and the gate is the bridge. You can still cross a river without a bridge. It just makes it a lot easier to cross a river with a bridge. So yeah. They showed a jump point next to Microtech. That doesn't mean that jump point goes to Hurston. It just means that
no, but there's rumors that they're going to, before they do an inter-system jump point, they're going to do an intra-system jump point, and I can see that happening. That's entirely plausible.
It'll depend how close Pyro is, probably.
I also think
how close that meshing is.
I think it's dumb. I think it's just going to add confusion to people who are already confused about how jump points work. Because they even said in CitizenCon right now, like, people were confused about if it was natural or artificial because people don't look through the lore like we do. So it's like, or even the kind of the technical aspects of it. So putting a jump point between Microtech and Hurston, with everyone telling you like, oh yeah, the jump points are going to come in when server meshing's in, is going to confuse the shit out of the average player. They're going to go, oh, so Pyro's in. And they'll jump in and they'll realize, no, this isn't Pyro. This is just a jump point this is just a fast travel location from one point to another. And there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of upset backers and stuff like that after the end of that, because it just won't be, I don't think it'll be messaged well. It'll be hard to message that. But
I could understand it going in to Stanton and being a jump point between the tools, Stanton to Microtech or Microtech to Argo or whatever, but like you, I can't see it being received well. I could see it being used for testing.
Yeah.
But because then I don't need to have the other system up, but I think it'd cause more trouble than it's worth.
It could be the sort of testing where they only give it to internal testers and Neva Cardi as well. Not even.
I can even see it in PTU. I can see it in like first wave or second wave PTU, and then they just remove it from the live.
I think that an aspect of the jump points that they also need to address is the idea that like everything in lore kind of hinges on them being completely invisible if they haven't been discovered yet.
Yeah.
And even like actually quite invisible if they've only just been discovered. Like if there's stories of like a few families are hiding behind there, or there's the story with Serling where it's like the Horus system. I think, where one person has been exploring it for like a decade with no one else finding the gate. And then suddenly these gates are now planet-sized glowing nebula, and that's supposed to be like just beyond Uranus. Like, we would have seen that. Like, that would have been noticed. Yeah. So I think that there's a little bit of like additional lore they need to put out, saying those clouds, that's actually like what's it called, interspace leakage, where the more it gets traveled, like more and more of this material's coming through, and that's what's creating these clouds. Whereas if they haven't been traversed, or if they haven't been traversed in a long time, there's nothing there. It's just a shimmer. It's just a
blip on your system that looks like an error.
Exactly, like the kind of thing you don't notice at all.
Yeah.
Well, you really have people. If you want to understand jump points and the origin of them, you really need to look at the Veneto Triangle.
Yeah.
It was kind of a Bermuda Triangle of space. Ships were just disappearing. No reason.
Yeah.
And it was only when, they tested an RSI jump quantum drive engine, and, it's been slightly tweaked and figured, and we found a jump point.
Exactly.
But that's really it. And as time goes on, we start to get them in more detail. But yeah, the initial finding of them is just a blip on the radar. And every jump point, when you look at the lore, every jump point that's discovered, there was the systems were showing something strange. So they went and investigated it.
Yeah, they accidentally
they could see it. It was just the systems were showing something weird.
And importantly, they can be undiscovered for centuries. Like we found one into the Xi'an holy system that they had no idea about. It's like they got better tech than us. They still can't spot it unless they fall upon it. So that's just a tweak. I absolutely loved the graphics they had particularly with that sort of spider-like plume coming out of the Pyro to the standard to Pyro, the sort of pulsar-like jets coming out of the Pyro to Stanton one. That was all gorgeous.
Yeah. And that idea almost feeds to that concept that you raised of the inter-system spillage that's just leaking into the area. So yeah, it makes sense as to why we've got the clouds as opposed to anything else.
How old is he? The average Xi'an lives almost to 1,000 years old. They are very long lived. We don't know. We don't actually know. We don't even know how long they live. They just
the current emperor is about, I think it's about like somewhere between 700 800 years old, and he's considered quite old.
Yeah.
So he was born just when this Cold War was starting. So.
And by the way, we are at $4,800, so that's really great, guys.
Let's get to 5,000.
Thank you, Jail.
Who's done that? But you know,
thank you, Jail.
Looks like your beard. Looks like yours and Execute's beards are safe, Croncy.
For now, until the next one.
Thank you, Jail, for gifting that.
It was 7,000. You said if you reach back, that'd go, but it doesn't look like we'll make that in the 7 minutes or 5 minutes that remain. But hopefully we'll get the 5K.
Yeah, we've got. Thank you, Jail, for that. Get that $100. Thank you for coming on as well. Shingo, thanks for that $40. We're still $200 away for that last little bit. If you want to hop in and help that out, so
remember, guys, if it gets to 5,000, the BMM comes out in 2 weeks. So
yes, that's exactly what happens. I can guarantee it. Promise it. I'm totally not lying to you.
Yeah,
we'll
start Citizen Zoom.
I will do a Banu or Xi'an calligraphy name drawing for whoever gets us over 5,000.
There we go.
Of your choice.
Of your choice. There we go.
If you get us over 5,000, I'll give you. If there's any ambiguity, I'll just do it for more than one person. But
yeah. So Mystic.
Where's your link for the Médecins Sans Frontières?
That's right there on chat. MSF is in there.
Oh, so you click on that and it takes you there.
Yeah.
We got to do like 2-factor. That's why I was like scrabbling around for my phone, like, oh shit. 2-factor this.
I'll have to look at it doing later because can't kind of get in there at the moment.
Mystic Bright Shadow asks, was it an oversight that they didn't include or offer X1 packages with a 400i?
I think they should have.
I've got to expect that conversation happened, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's an oversight, a missed opportunity.
I imagine it was because then half of the new pack would be flyable and half of it wouldn't, and they've already had to be a little bit careful over some of their statements that they're making. So I think that it's probably just that. Yeah, it's probably just because they don't want to apply the X1s ready.
Yeah.
But then when the Banu Defender first came out, there are actually packs they sold with the Banu Defender and the BMM, which was great because I think you still got the BMM at that time. The BMM was still $250 in pricing, and you got it with LTI. $40 from LTI. So
yeah,
those packs were awesome.
$40 from Das Bull. So we're now at 4,840. So 4,840.
So when that package came out last time, like we're in a very different marketing situation than we were back then.
Yeah.
So, I'm not surprised that it didn't come with it, but I definitely think the conversation happened, and they probably just straight up no.
Yeah, and I could see that because I do know I'd read recently there was complaints of CIG being complaints in England about the advertising of ships being promised that weren't out, and
it was the advertising referee agency. They don't even have a power to like fine people. They can only escalate it to another body. It's just the referee that goes like not even a yellow card, more of a sort of like, they could change the wording on that, be more clear, and then that got like way blown out of proportion. It's like it's the ASA. It's not. It's like a comment from someone from the Better Business Bureau. It's not even like a ruling. It's not. Not important.
And even from what I gathered from that whole thing was CIG was reported. They looked at it and said, yeah, this could be a little bit better. And so they told CIG, and CIG was like, cool, we'll change the email. And that was it.
Yeah.
It was just like, all right, we'll change the email to make it a little bit more clear in the email. Because they already make it clear everywhere else. Like, this is not released yet. This is still in. This
is still in concept. These things could change. You're buying, buy buy beware, or beware of the dog, as the old Roman.
But anything CIG is going to do with digital marketing is going to be increasingly dealt with by these agencies that think of video games more in terms of like more predatory loot boxes for kids kind of stuff. So I expect that we're going to see more of that kind of stuff, like those kind of rulings and decisions.
Yeah, I also think that CIG is smart enough and has a good enough legal team that they know how to navigate those waters pretty easily.
Toast.
Yeah,
but you don't understand, Paul. If you read the Kotaku like report, we'll see that Star Citizen is a complete 100% scam.
I don't want to keep dunking on Kotaku, but these are the same people who mistook a porn bot for Bungie. A porn bot, a legitimate porn bot, April Fool's joke for Bungie, because they changed the name from whatever it was to Bungie with a 1 instead of the I, and they made a very like serious looking letterhead about how they had to delay. Oh no, it was 343. It wasn't even Bungie. They mistake it for fucking Microsoft. For Bungie, or for 343 delaying Halo Infinite as a April Fool's joke. They thought it was real, ran with it for several hours before someone told them it's a porn bot. And how easily could you do it? You click on the actual bot, you scroll down on the account, you scroll down once, and it's an immediate link to a porn. And like there's like 4 or 5 of them on that. It's like you could have done the literally basic 2-second research that you didn't do because it was more better to get that instant karma. So I apologize if I think Kotaku is an absolute garbage entity that doesn't do its research. Like, do your research, y'all. Like, I don't take you seriously until you're doing research. But
they've changed their editor, and the journalist who was responsible for the Winter Storm articles about which seemed to be down to some isolated incidents of miscommunication that weren't in line with CIG policy. Yeah. That he's left. He's actually gone to a better job, but I still have. What bugged me about that guy was that he was then disparaging some members of staff of CIG based on what department they worked in. I thought that was completely reprehensible for any journalist to do. So I don't listen to them, but.
Yeah. Hey, $160 from Das Bull for that 5,000.
It's at 5K. So yep.
Who was it?
It was Das Bull 389.
Das Bull 389.
Yeah. Oh God, and then Lit Drifter Boy just dropped another 160.
Beware those beards, guys. They could be in danger.
Both of you find me on Twitter, and I'll do some Xi'an or Banu calligraphy. Just let me know. Both those guys, and we'll get you some if you like it, that kind of thing.
All right, thank you so much, y'all. Thank you to Croncy. Everyone should be following Croncy. Jail, you should be following Jail. Algrid, you should be following Algrid, and our info runners. You should be if you enjoyed this lore talk. We do a lore podcast. Al, Jail, and I have done a lore podcast for 5 episodes. We haven't done one recently because of all of the Jail's been moving.
All the lead up to CitizenCon and
Al and I have been going back to work for school, so it's like all of the stuff has been thrown out of the window. But soon we'll come back with more stuff. But you should listen to that podcast. It's fantastic. You should be watching Croncy and his 24-hour bad streams, which are bad because they hurt you.
Yeah, bad, correct.
And you should follow him and watch him. And thank you for everyone who's watched us over the last 24 hours. Thank you for all of the support. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope to God I've gone back and I've put start and end markers for each section, so at least you know where the start and end are for the last 24 hours. But I'm not going to do that until tomorrow or later today, after I've gotten 8 hours of sleep. So thank you all. Like I say every time, hope to see y'all again someday in the black. Later, y'all.
See you, everyone.
Okay.
All right, we're going to send this love to somebody else. Gosh. Let's see who's streaming still. Star Citizen. Have some folks streaming Star Citizen who I know. No, none of them I know. You know what? Why not? Miss Gavis. Miss Gavis. I rated her earlier. I rated her last. Awesome. She's awesome, fantastic. She's newer to the Star Citizen community, but she's learning to do all of the things. Go make her day. Say hello to her. She's learning how to PvP. She's getting better at it, and she also is a dancer like me, like a fantastic dancer. So, later, y'all.
Right. Take care.